Free to start at any time.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The time is 9:11 a.m. Today is Thursday, June 24th, 2001. This is a one-day meeting of the Physical Therapy Board of California. Today we are meeting virtually by WebEx. This is an official business meeting of the Physical Therapy Board of California. The board's role during the pandemic continues to be to maintain consumer protection and consult with local and state entities on the laws and regulations pertaining to the physical therapy industry. I'd like to explain how this meeting will be conducted. We do have a moderator from the Department of Consumer Affairs online to help us today. Individuals listening to the meeting will have an opportunity to provide public comment and will be assisted by a moderator who will be facilitating the teleconferencing process. We will take public comment on specific agenda items, and at both the beginning and the end of the meeting, there will be a comment section for items not on the agenda. Public comments must be specific to the agenda item that is being discussed. If you make a comment during a specific agenda item that's not related to that topic, you will be placed on mute by the moderator. All comments that do not directly relate to an item on the agenda should be held until the agenda item for items not on the agenda. The board follows the Open Meeting Act. So while we accept and appreciate the public's comments, we cannot respond to those comments. For those members of the public participating via teleconference, please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you make your comments. The moderator will give instructions on how to participate at each opportunity for public comment. This meeting is being recorded and minutes of the meeting will be prepared. Can we please have roll call?
Alicia Benaman, here. Katerina Ellaby.
Present.
Dale Armstrong.
Present.
Jesus Dominguez.
Present.
Daniel Drummer.
Present.
Jonathan Irvin. Jonathan Irvin is absent. Tanya McMillian.
Present.
All members are present with the exception of Jonathan Irvin, and the board has a quorum.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, I'd like to ask Dr. Daniel Drummer to please read our board's mission statement.
Madam President, the mission of the Physical Therapy Board of California is to advance and protect the interests of the people of California by the effective administration of the Physical Therapy Practice Act.
Thank you, Dr. Drummer. And agenda item number 4 is public comment on items not on the agenda. So, moderator, will you please facilitate public comment for us?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I'm opening up the question and answer feature, which we also call the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and send it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no request for public comment at this time. Madam Board President, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's closed.
Okay, agenda item number 5 is review and approval of the March 24th, 2021 meeting minutes.
The March 24th, 2021 draft meeting minutes begin on page 18 of the meeting materials. I'll go through each page to see if the members have any edits. Were there any edits on page 18? Page 19? Page 20? Page 21? Page 22?
Sorry, this is Daniel. A little slow on the draw. On page 20, under the President's report, the item is listed as the 2021 adopted meeting calendar, but we haven't ever adopted the meeting calendar for this year. kind of been working with it, but we've never adopted this meeting calendar, I believe.
Thank you, Dr. Drummer. I'll go ahead and edit that to propose.
Thank you.
This is Dale. I also have a comment. I'm not sure which page it's on, but I took notes. Item 9, under item 9, Executive Officers Report, paragraph 1, line 3. It's actually line number 166. There's a Y in Dale. Y is missing.
Oh, thank you. I'll go ahead and make that edit. Were there any other edits on page 22? Moving on to page 23. '24. 25. Page 26. Page 27. Page 28. Page 29. Page 30. Page 31. Page 32. 33. 34. Page 35. Page 36.
This is Daniel from Daniel Drummer. Come back. Line 752, Ms. Ellaby was elected vice president. Should be for 2021, not 2020.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Drummer. I'll make that edit. Were there any additional changes on page 36? Page 37?
This is Daniel. Sorry, this is Daniel again. I believe the line 800 and 801 is incorrect, where it says Ms. McMillian was elected FSBPT alternate. I believe that should be Dr. Armstrong.
You're correct. You're correct. Let me, I'll edit that as well. Thank you, Dr. Drummer.
I was going to say, I saw that too.
We tried.
I recall a fairly firm no.
Were there any other edits on page 37? Page 38? Page 39? And that concludes the draft minutes for the March 2021 meeting.
So I move to approve the March 24th, 2021 meeting minutes as amended.
I will second.
A motion by myself and a second by Dr. Armstrong, was that?
Yes.
Was that you, Dr. Armstrong?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. And any further board discussion? And moderator, can you please facilitate public comment?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. This is the moderator and Madam Board President. I don't see any requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's closed.
Okay. And can we please have a roll call vote?
Alicia Ben-Amen,
Aye.
Dale Armstrong,
Yes.
Jesus Dominguez,
Since I was not able to attend, I should probably abstain.
Daniel Drummer,
Aye.
Katarina Elby,
Aye.
Jonathan Irvin. Jonathan Irvin is absent. Tanya McMillian,
Aye.
so it's 5-0. Motion carried with 1 abstention.
Thank you. Moving right along, agenda item number 6 is the proposed calendar, President's report. So if we can all look at the 2021 meeting calendar. Here we are, June 24th. We have a one-day meeting. I'll just open it up for board comments, staff comments on the calendar.
This is Daniel. I had a question about December 20th is highlighted in lavender, which seems to be associated with CPTA events. But when we look down below under December, there's nothing there. So I'm thinking that might just be a rampant highlighter.
It's actually an unrelated category. It's there. It's unfortunately we are still experiencing some formatting issues. So you'll see CPTA Student Conclave for the 20th under the April month. It needs to be moved down to the December month.
Or was there a student conclave on April 20th?
I believe conclave was in April.
I believe that was the case. I don't believe student conclave will be set for December.
No.
No, so I guess it's the other way around. We need to move the highlight from December to the month of April.
Thank you.
Okay, and for both board members and, well, let's start with, board members and staff, actually. How are you looking for the dates of our September meeting on Wednesday the 15th and the 16th? Mr. Kaiser, I had to step away just for a moment, but I don't know if our assistant executive officer might know something about the September meeting being virtual or in person, or what we might be trying to do. It'll still be virtual. Okay. And any board member comments about the December meeting, 9th or 10th? Yes.
Wait a minute. Can we discuss the virtual for September? I'm so ready to get out of here.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, I apologize, Mr. Kaiser had to step away for a moment, but I do think that there might be some insight regarding future in-person meetings. He's back now.
So only hearing part of the conversation that you were having as I stepped out of the room. We do and are planning on returning to an in-person meeting for the month of December. If we were even able to prepare for a meeting for September, it would be rather difficult right now to make travel arrangements, find a venue, and find hotel accommodations for all of board staff. So right now we are still planning for the September meeting virtual, and then planning to return to an in-person meeting for December here in Sacramento. And, you know, we'll play that one a little bit by ear. but that is what we're anticipating.
This is Daniel.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what's coming up in probably the executive officer's report as far as sunset and the discussions, continuing the discussions there. But I'm just anticipating that we may be moving down that road in the fall. Would a meeting in Sacramento in September be out of the question? The benefit of having face-to-face, if we're going to start down those kinds of discussions, might be something to look into rather than trying to find an outside venue.
It's not out of the question, and it may be something, it may be necessary at some point. The sunset discussions at DCA right now are still preliminary. We do have a meeting Tuesday of next week to discuss the 21-22 sunset. We will have a 1 hour long Q&A with the BNP staff and their consultants, along with an additional hour with DCA and their executive staff. So I believe we will know more, but from all kind of indications that we've had up to this point, it is still very preliminary. As you can imagine, the legislature is still dealing with COVID and the global pandemic, and so some of these things are a little bit lower on their list of priorities. So like last year's sunset, our sunset might be kind of tumultuous as well. But to Dr. Zummer's point, in the minutes, it's still a proposed meeting calendar, and we may want to discuss adding a few dates, maybe in October or November, or even changing as the recommendation to add September as an in-person meeting, if that is what the board wishes. If that's the case, we can start trying to find accommodations here in Sacramento as quickly as possible.
This is Jesus Dominguez, real quick. Sorry, Mr. Kaiser. So we are preparing for resumption of on-campus activities, and my teaching day is completely saturated on Wednesday, so I could not attend in either case, either via WebEx or physically present. So just to let the board know that.
And with the idea of moving to September, we could move that to a 16th, 17th. If the board kind of recalls, when we're in Sacramento, we're doing 16th and, well, Thursdays and Fridays as opposed to Wednesdays and Thursdays. So we can certainly accommodate Dr. Dominguez in that way. But we can also talk about dates like that in October and November as well. And again, we may have to. There are a number of members on this panel of this board who have been involved in past sunsets. And I will just tell you to kind of temper your expectations, because the sunset process has changed a little bit over the last couple of years, being that it is a little bit more truncated and maybe not as extensive as it's been in the past. So those that have been with this board for a while remember almost a meeting a month for 4 months straight and that kind of thing. And I don't know that that's quite necessary moving forward. A lot of the data that we'll be collecting is, routine, and we'll be providing it in the format that the Business and Professions Committee is expecting. Really, the discussion will be hinged upon any kind of issues that the board wants to discuss as far as changes in legislation, things that you might want to run through the idea of, maybe changing the Practice Act or something like that. So I think that's the bulk of the conversations to be had.
And I'm wondering if there wasn't a lot of change or proposals that the board had, if there could be some sort of section-by-section review for the board, just to familiarize everyone again with the entire package and how it all goes and what staff and or board members may need to be working on until January. Just maybe a get back up to speed kind of thing.
Sure, and we can provide the previous sunset report, and I do have the questionnaire template for the boards that went through sunset this year. The questionnaire changes from year to year, but 90% of it stays the same. So I can certainly provide that to the members as an email to kind of get your thoughts together and things that you might want to discuss at future meetings.
This is Daniel. I think a presentation style report kind of thing would be a great idea regarding sunset. Sunset aside, since we kind of don't know really where things are going, back to Dr. Dominguez's comment, I wonder if if it might be more feasible for us to switch the meeting from 15-16 to 16-17 of September. My recall is that September was usually a travel meeting where we were away from Sacramento. But given that we haven't been in the new office, we haven't seen the new space, it might be an okay thing for us to try to be there if an in-person can be done. But regardless, switching the dates from 15-16 to 16-17 in September, I think we should look at.
I think a safe plan would be changing the dates to 16-17.
Oh,
Instructing staff to try and find a way to do it in person here in Sacramento. And if we run into any kind of logistic issues, being able to fall back on a virtual meeting. September is normally our travel meeting, but as long as we're under the executive order with the governor and the restriction of travel, we don't have an obligation to meet to our Practice Act language of meeting once in Southern California and once in Northern California. So I think we're safe there.
Jason, I hate to throw a wrench into this, but the 17th is not open for me. Or I just won't be able to make it. Oh, God. That sucks.
And just to kind of explore the idea is, does the 23rd and 24th work for members?
Wide open.
Dr. Dominguez?
I'm not open on the 24th.
And I'm checking.
This is
To throw it
Katerina.
out.
I don't have any conflicts for either option.
Same here.
I was going to say if there's a quorum on the 17th, then I would just have to be absent if it works for everybody else.
Sure, and I think we could focus the material and the agenda to make sure that we address the sunset items on the 16th. And as an example, move a training or move the statistical reports to the second day so that you don't miss too much.
Thank you. I would miss a lot. I'd miss you guys.
We would miss you. But at least you'd be able to see us. And come
Right,
see me
one
this week.
day.
I'm excited for you guys in the location.
Okay.
This is Jesus Dominguez. Tanya, that was a great line. I'm not sure I have anything more than that, but I would be open the following weekend. But like Ms. McMillian said, it really depends on the preference of the board. I'm happy to do whatever the collective decides on.
Any other discussion on the 2021 meeting calendar, the December date? Okay, do we need to take action for the change?
If we're going to move to the 16th, 17th, we do. And with the in the motion, if you please include, direct staff to make arrangements for an in-person meeting. And if we're not able to do so, default to the WebEx.
Okay. I would like to move to change our September meeting date to the 16th and 17th, and to direct staff to make arrangements for an in-person meeting. And if it is not possible to hold an in-person meeting, to have a virtual meeting.
This is Jesus Dominguez, since I threw that wrench in, I'll second it.
We've got a motion by myself and a second by Dr. Dominguez. Is there any further board discussion? And moderator, can you please facilitate public comment?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on this agenda item, please type "I would like to make a comment" in the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. This is the moderator. I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Alicia Benet-Amen.
Aye.
Dale Armstrong.
Aye.
Jesus Dominguez.
Aye.
Daniel Drummer.
Aye.
Katarina Elby.
Aye.
Jonathan Urban. Jonathan Urban is absent. Sonia McMillian.
Aye.
6-0, motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, and if we can all take a look at the proposed 2022 calendar, and any board member comments, staff comments.
The only thing that I'd add to the 2022 calendar is, again, maybe the possibility of additional dates either in January or February.
Okay.
And I think that's something that, members could just keep in mind for now, and we may ask for a more, definitive answer at the September meeting. We'll know a little bit more about Sunset by then. Hopefully.
Hopefully. And Sunset could happen in February or March?
Typically, it would happen in March, but we did see, because of the pandemic, dates being set back into even April. So.
Oh, okay.
And some dates, even as of today, still have not resolved. So some people that were scheduled for Sunset this year still haven't had their hearing.
And so we could actually do some preparation meetings and have our package ready to go and possibly sit around for a couple months and not, yeah. You just gotta wait and see.
I mean, I think as the state becomes a little bit more acclimated to the current state, I don't see that being the case. But this year, during the Sunset season, if you will, we were kind of at one of the heights of the pandemic, and so we were extremely locked down. The legislature was entertaining emergency legislation for so many different things related to COVID, and so those hearings kept getting rescheduled as a result of that priority. So this oncoming year, I don't think that will be as much of a case.
Thank you. Any further comments from board members or staff on the 2022 proposed meeting calendar? So,
staff and I will do what we can between now and the September meeting to kind of come up with recommended dates for October, November, January, February, so on.
okay.
So you may, as members, also be receiving doodle polls
Okay.
to find out your availability as well.
And that 2022 calendar is something we usually keep our eye on until December when we actually take action on it. Okay. And so at this point, hearing no further board member comment, I would like to ask the moderator to please facilitate any public comment on the 22 meeting calendar.
Thank you, Madam Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type. I would like to make a comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. This is the moderator, and I see no request for comment. Madam Board President, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam President,
Yes.
this is Daniel. I just scrolled down further to the bottom of the page of the 22 calendar, the 2022 calendar, and September is listed APTA Centennial Gala. That's the Centennial Gala is actually happening this year, so it won't be in 2022. So that should be removed. And then the dates for the CPTA annual meeting in 2022 should be revised from the 22nd to the 25th to instead be the 24th and 25th, just 2 days.
Thank you, Dr. Drummer. We'll make those edits on the calendar.
Madam President, this is Jesus.
Yes.
Could I make a quick comment? Thank you. Same scenario potentially for that September meeting in 2022. It's a bit far out for us to know, or me to know my teaching schedule, but just to give a heads up, I'll try and work around the scheduling to accommodate that. I'll know more after the beginning of the year.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and we will proceed to agenda item number 7, which is...
Madam President?
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. I would like to suggest that we adopt the 2021 meeting calendar and make it official now, since we're halfway through, for the remainder of the year, instead of having it be still hanging out as a proposed calendar.
Sorry, I missed that. Thank you. Have we not adopted it since last year?
We haven't, and I think it's somewhat of a formality. I think in September we may be asking you, like if we adopted it right now, which I think is perfectly fine, we may be asking to open the item back up for edit at the September meeting to kind of add dates possibly for October, November, January, and February.
Okay.
But I think for the sake of clarity and for those, the millions watching at home, a motion to adopt the calendar as it's written today is perfectly fine.
Okay. And do we have a motion?
So moved.
This is Jesus Dominguez, second.
We have a motion by Dr. Drummer and a second by Dr. Dominguez. Any further board comments? Yeah, moderator, can you please open public comment and facilitate it for us? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Board President. I am opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type. I would like to make a comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. This is a moderator, and Madam Board President, I see no request for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Alicia Benayamin.
Aye.
Dale Armstrong.
Aye.
Jesus Dominguez.
Aye.
Daniel Drummer,
Aye.
Katarina Ellaby,
Aye.
Jonathan Irvin. Jonathan Irvin is absent. Tanya McMillian,
Aye.
6-0, motion carried. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Drummer, for bringing that to our attention. And we'll move to agenda item number 7, the Executive Officers Report.
There are a number of items that I wanted to draw the attention to the board. Firstly, in staffing, I'd like to welcome 2 new members to the Physical Therapy Board of California. First, Mr. Paul Rowe, who's been appointed to the Military and Endorsement Applications position to evaluate PT and PTA applications and endorsements from military initial applications for licensure, and also any out-of-state or endorsement applications. In addition, Mr. Rowe will serve as the military subject matter expert for the PTBC and address all military-related requests from licensees. He previously served with the Board of Registered Nursing as a program technician too, and has extensive experience in application and their licensing units there. Secondly, Ms. Pearl Herr has been appointed to the office technician typing position within the Administrative Services Unit. Ms. Herr will serve as the PTBC's receptionist and provide support to administrative staff. Prior to her appointment with us here at the PTBC, she worked in the healthcare sector as an employee, a health department assistant, and she has several years of customer service experience and has worked as a call center agent with Maximus. We look forward to having Mr. Rowe and Ms. Herr as part of our team, and are excited to welcome them to the PTBC family. For the admin units and for the application units right now, I'm sure they will provide a great relief. Due to vacancy, the PTBC is currently recruiting a full-time office technician within the application services unit, which will provide clerical support to the unit, and we expect this position to be staffed in the next few weeks. Come July 1, we will begin a recruitment for 4 new positions. 1 limited term full-time staff analyst, SSA, and 1 limited term full-time office technician, both in the application services unit, to address an influx of applications received. Also, 1 limited term full-time analyst that is what we call a toggler or /SSA AGPA to serve as the board's regulations analyst, and 1 staff services manager to serve as the manager over the Consumer Protection Services unit. Another item regarding staffing that I wanted to bring to the attention of the board is funding. As a result of recent bargaining talks, state employees will receive a 4.55% raise when their full pay is restored on July 1. As you might remember, their pay was reduced by 9.23% last year because of the projected deficit, and they were given 2 furlough days per month. They will be getting the original 9.23% back, as well as the additional 4.55 that was previously part of the union bargain. This will have a slight impact on the fund condition. It's just something that I want to draw the board's attention to. We'll have a little bit more extensive of a report in the budget report under the admin agenda item. For application services, something that I wanted to address with the board is, the PT profession is an ever-growing profession. I think we all know that, but to highlight it, I wanted to bring to the attention of the board the addition of 3 new PTA programs this year, moving us from 16 programs to 19 programs. California Baptist University, Institute of Technology, and Stanbridge University. And really, that's just a start. There are 10 more programs in development currently, 4 of which that are already in their first cohort. So next year, we'll move from 19 to 23. And we could see 29 PTA programs in California by the end of 2023. That's a huge increase, and we'll certainly see the impact in our applications unit. And there'll definitely be a need for additional staffing for the applications unit.
Jason?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Are those new programs accredited programs at this point, or are they just starting out their process?
So there are now 19 accredited programs, and there are 4 new programs this year that will be accredited, moving to 23. And then the other programs in development aren't accredited yet. And some of them are at the stage where all they've done at this point is hire a program director. But we've seen the movement on that list speed up, where they're moving from one part of the development list to the other rather quickly. And so whether it's to address a demand or what have you, we could see, we are seeing a significant increase in the PTA programs. We're not seeing an increase in California for PT programs at this point. In fact, there are no PT programs in development even in California at this point. Nationwide, there has been an increase in PT programs, but California is seeing a surge in PTA programs.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, hey, so I just wanted to say, I don't know if this is directed to Jason or to us as a board, but with the addition of all these new programs and school, should we revisit Jason's position? It's a lot, Jason, that's added onto your workload. So I don't know, Madam President, is that open for discussion or?
Yeah, I think I'm interested in learning about the size of each cohort of the new program. Yeah. How many?
It's something we're currently researching now.
Yes.
So some of these programs have gone, under our radar for quite a bit. So us being able to reach out to them and contact them over the last 30 to 45 days. With some schools, we've been very successful. We've already established a rapport. We've done presentations for programs that are in development, but not quite, credited yet at this point. We're still having a little bit of difficulty, contacting some of these schools that are showing up on the development list. So, but staff has been very, proactive in trying to get in touch with them, finding out when their graduation dates are scheduled, how many students they expect in their graduating cohort, so that we can prepare for that kind of flow into the system. At this point, we are still kind of just playing it by ear. We'll touch on these a little bit more as we go through the outreach agenda items and also the applications agenda item later. So I don't want to steal too much of staff's thunder because they've done a really good job at contacting these new schools and making arrangements and collecting data. We can, for the September meeting, provide a report that has maybe a little bit more accurate list of what schools have what students graduating when.
Okay.
So the board will have a little bit more data.
I can help with that, I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do know that in general, PTA programs have smaller cohorts than PT programs. However, I believe there is a PTA program in the Bay Area that is now adding a second cohort each year. And so not only are we getting new programs, but some existing programs may be having second cohort start at different times each year.
It's interesting that you bring that up because one of the things that we've noticed over time is while we don't have any additional PT programs accredited, we have seen additional cohorts added to existing programs, which is something that kind of flies under our radar, and we may not be aware of it because we don't get that notification from CAPTV. We need to receive that notification in that line of communication with the school directly. So we've had an increase in applications at the PT level also, but it's just something that we're seeing statistically after the fact, which means that we're kind of reacting instead of trying to plan for. But again, with the huge increase in PTA programs, we did not anticipate. There was a change in federal statute about how accredited programs are defined. And so that increase from 16 to 19 is partially attributed to that. At the federal level, some of these cohorts that we're running through, the graduates of those programs were not able to be licensed in other states because of how they were listed in CAPI's accreditation. And so federally, they changed the definition to address that issue. It's not a problem in California. You know, typically we just wait until they're accredited, and that CAPI gives them the green light and the A for pass, and we license those folks. But they do run a risk of maybe having their initial license delayed because of a CAPI accreditation problem. So again, just moving from 16 to 19, we've seen a significant increase. When we were crunching numbers kind of on a basic level, we attributed a 15% increase in applications received for PTAs to the addition of a single school. So 3 schools and then 7 schools by next year is going to be very significant.
So in light of Ms. McMillion's comments and maybe preparing for that or just having a better idea of what that might look like as far as numbers and its effect on staff, the report would be appreciated, whatever you can come up with. And then also maybe some sort of short report on efficiencies brought on by Breeze and how that may or may not free up staff time in the applications unit, and how maybe other duties popped up instead of processing applications.
We'd be happy to provide that. Just in discussions with staff and the managers, that's an ongoing conversation. And we know that we are a proponent of the Breeze system, and we certainly appreciate some of the efficiencies realized from Breeze. I think one of the things that doesn't kind of make it out into the ethos is that while Breeze has additional efficiencies, it still requires almost the same amount of work. What we get as a result of that, though, is a much more functional, much more usable database that we can query and run reports off of, much better than we were with the legacy systems. So while Breeze is better and it is more efficient, it doesn't necessarily mean that it translates to less work for staff. If anything, in some categories, it's actually created more. You know, there are some routine transactions that occur through Breeze that have almost, have taken a lot of the toll off of staff, such as license renewal. 90% of license renewals are run automated through Breeze. What comes from that, though, is the ability to address licensees' concerns, issues, troubleshooting problems. And so it's just diverting of labor for staff to address a different issue. In the applications part, where Breeze provides more automation, it also provides for a greater collection of data. And so where there may have only been 13 fields to fill in a legacy system, there's 30-something fields to fill in, and make sure that the data is correct. So we do spend a lot more time collecting that data. But again, that data is very valuable for us to be able to do other things as far as reporting and identifying trends and increasing PTA programs.
Yeah, and I think I can appreciate the fact that while there isn't paper pushing going on, better attention can be paid to, answering questions from licensees, and whereas maybe in the past that wasn't as easy to do because there was so much time put to paper pushing. And then I think about how those of us who've been licensed PTs for some time now, who remember charting by hand, that was actually much quicker, at least for me, than the automated system. Sometimes the automated system takes longer to navigate through. And so I do understand how, that isn't necessarily an efficiency in and of itself.
That is a great simile for our stakeholders who are listening right now. Using EMR as opposed to paper records is an excellent example of transitioning from legacy to Breeze. It's not necessarily easier, and it's not necessarily quicker, but it does produce a better and more accurate record and more error-free.
Any board comments?
I just want to say thank you, Madam President and Jason, for addressing my concern.
Thank you for having that concern. Staff will appreciate it. So if we're done with applications and licensing, I'll move on to consumer protection services. And there's just a couple key things to highlight. I don't want to take thunder from the other unit reports, but as we discussed in the last meeting, we've been using a secure online cloud portal to transmit case documents and reports to the Attorney General's office. That is working really well, and it's one of those efficiencies that was driven by COVID out of necessity. And so normally where we would be mailing large boxes at times of files and copies of reports and those kind of things to the Department of Justice's Attorney General's office directly, we can now upload those to a cloud portal securely and have the intended district attorney pick them up. And it works really well. In fact, it's kind of becoming a best practice, and we're seeing it in other areas. You know, we'll soon be using a very similar system to transmit documents and reports to DCA's Division of Investigation. And so that's something that we're going to be tackling in the next month or two. Again, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. And some of these things that we would have liked to have had for a very long time, but just weren't able to do, it seems like global pandemic can really shake those kind of things up, and we can get some of that stuff done. So for outreach, again, I don't want to steal too much of Ms. Beauchamp's thunder, but I did want to come back to the topic of new PTA programs. You may recall, as part of the strategic plan, we had a goal of speaking to 16 out of 16 programs by the conclusion of the strategic plan. And while we may not achieve that goal of the original 16, because there's a few stubborn holdouts, both in PT programs and PTA programs, that either just don't answer the phone or aren't interested in the content we're providing, because of the increase in PTA programs, we'll clearly reach the 16 mark, and then some, right? By the conclusion of the strategic plan, we may have 20 programs, 20 some odd programs that we've addressed and provided information and presentation to. And again, like I said, it may not be the original 16 because of those holdouts, but we'll have quite a bit done. And I will say that we've already met proactively with one of the developing programs that is still in the initial phases and isn't even projected to have its first graduating class until 2025 for PTA. But, and again, Ms. Beauchamp will touch on this a little bit more in her report, and I don't want to take her thunder, but the program that we've been in contact with doesn't have any students yet. And we're already kind of setting that foundation and expectation, a menu of services that we can provide to them. And that it's working out really well. And I'm sure April will have more to say about that. So the last item on my list is the Physical Therapy Board of California's relocation. And I'm happy to say that the relocation is 99% complete. There's still a few minor kind of logistical items to work out and complete, but you know, staff have acclimated well to the new space. I think we're all eager to get back to work. And as the board members know, we were so crowded for so long in the old space that now that we're up here in a larger space, but also kind of, you know, the issue being exacerbated by COVID and working and teleworking from home, this space can seem cavernous at times, and we're so far apart. When we start to return to a little bit of normalcy in 3 and 4 days back in the office, I think we'll really appreciate, you know, the space at its fullest. And again, I love the idea of moving the September meeting to an in-person meeting here in Sacramento, because I'm eager for the board members to see the new space in person. And that concludes my year report.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your work on a successful relocation. I know it's been a lot. I know that there's a lot that we don't know about that you've been taking care of. So thank you for all of that, Jason. Regarding strategic plan, can you please remind us when that end date is? Is that 2023?
It's 2023.
Okay. And I know in the past, downstairs when we were in the old space, we had some things up on the wall that showed our progress and all. And not that you have to give us anything specific, but any progress that you want to mention right now?
We still have those thermometer posters, and we still use them. We're still following an action plan, and I believe we're making really good progress towards that action plan. In fact, in September, it's the annual report where there'll be an agenda item, and we'll bring those posters back out so you can see them and have updates on some of the progress and where we are. Some of the things that we planned on doing as a result of the strategic plan, some of those that were kind of would-be nices turned out to be essential and necessary. And so even if we had not planned on the strategic plan, we would have ended up doing them anyway. But again, I think we've made a lot of progress. There are still a few, things that I think we can do a little bit better as far as a communication plan to stakeholders, consumers. I mean, we've done a really good job with stakeholders being licensees and applicants with listserv blasts, newsletters, social media content, that kind of thing. But we still have a lot to kind of learn about how to reach out to the consumers of physical therapy services directly. And I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge for all professional regulation, not just the physical therapy board. So, but again, we'll report on strategic plan in the September meeting to kind of give you a more formal update.
Thank you. Any board member comments?
This is Daniel. I have a question just about relocation. You said we're 99% there. Do we still have items that are downstairs in the old space? And if that's the case, are we still paying rent for that space at this point?
No, that's something that was resolved early on because we had other tenants taking over our space. So we're completely out of that space, 100%, and have been since December. And there's really no way for us to double bill, right? So I can't be in two leases at one time. We have procured, if you will, some additional space for storage. I'm sure we've discussed this in the past, but as part of our move, we were affected by the pandemic in that some of the equipment that we ordered was not scheduled to be delivered until at one point April, and then May, and then June. And we just received the last of that equipment yesterday. So some of that equipment is still kind of in a storage space next to our suite because we have to hire movers to come in and earthquake things to the wall and move some of that. So that's that 1% that we were talking about. And then just, the aesthetics of the building, we're still kind of in a moving phase. We're finding places for things, we're readjusting and, saying, these things might work better in this area and that kind of thing. So, but we are clearly out of the space downstairs. In fact, the California Board of Dental Hygiene is occupying our new space, and we've been out of it, as I said, since December.
Any other board comments? And Dr. Armstrong, I know you've been with us for about 6 months now. Do you have any comment or question regarding the executive officer's report?
I do not. Thank you for asking.
I just have a couple of other questions, short questions. When staff has their pay reinstated and then receives their raise in July, are the furloughs also going away? Or have those gone away?
The collection of additional furloughs will go away.
Okay.
The furloughs that they have banked up to this point or haven't used will continue to be accessible to them as leave balances.
Okay.
Similar to the PLP processes that we've had in the past, those are just what we consider liabilities on the books. They're unworked time that is due to each and every employee. So they will have those until they're extinguished.
Okay. And then any update on manager for the enforcement unit?
Only that we're starting the recruitment July 1.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Last call for board member comment on the executive officer's report. And moderator, can you please facilitate public comment?
Thank you, Madam President. I will open up the Q&A panel, and if any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is a moderator. I see no request for public comment at this time. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's 10:12 now. We've been at this for about an hour, and I anticipate taking a break sometime soon, but think we might be able to get through a couple of more agenda items. So let's move forward with agenda item number 8, please. And this is discussion regarding waivers issued by DCA, the director of DCA.
There were 3 additional waiver extensions that were recently issued by the director of DCA during the state of emergency, which was resulting from COVID. The 3 waivers were DCA 21-134, which waives license renewal requirements, DCA 21-148, which waives the in-person exam requirement for continued PT treatment, and DCA 21-131, which extends the time for applicants to satisfy exam requirements. However, since the materials went out, 2 of these waivers mentioned have already been extended further. So for the first waiver I mentioned, DCA 21-134, which waives continuing education requirements for individuals whose active license expires between March 31st and May 31st, 2021. This waiver was recently extended by DCA waiver 21-152, which waives license renewal requirements until July 31st. Again, licensees must satisfy any waived renewal requirements within 6 months of the order unless it is further extended. DCA 21-148 waives the in-person physician examination requirement for continued physical therapy treatment, and this new order will now terminate June 30th. 2021 unless further extended. DCA 21-131 extends time to satisfy exam requirements for PT and PTA applicants for applications denied due to the applicant failing to take and pass the exam between April 3rd and June 1st, 2021. This waiver was further extended recently by DCA waiver 21-155, which addresses applications between June 2nd and August 1st, 2021.
Any board member comments on the waivers?
This is Daniel. Sorry.
Yes.
I have comment. I'm not sure if how much it can be cleaned up versus how much is just the direct language from the waivers. But looking at the first one with regard to continuing education, that A says that the dates that are listed. So somebody who expires between July 1 and August 31 of 2020. Then B goes all the way back to the beginning, which B was the second extension. The date there says then between March 31st and October 31st. And then C also contains those same dates. D then only starts January 1st of 2021. Doesn't go all the way back to March 31st of 2020. And the same thing happens with E and F then. And I don't know if it's because of the specific language of each of those extensions, or can it be, are these just summaries that would say that, okay, this does go March 31st, 2020 until the new date, just so it's For me, it just provides more clarity because the way that if I have to read each separate one, it gets more confusing as to exactly which dates are included.
We concur with your frustration. These are direct copies of the waivers that were issued from the Department of Consumer Affairs direct. And I think there was kind of a learning process through the whole pandemic and the whole time period. So there is kind of this weird, inconsistent way of recording the who's affected when and how. Essentially, for those stakeholders that are listening and that call in and ask these questions, we just provide to them that the waivers A through F and now this additional extension of the waiver accounts for everyone up until July 1st of 2021. So if you expired any time from March of 2020 through July 1st of 2021, you have an additional 6 months from July 1 to come in compliance with your continuing comp. We've provided input as far as the FAQ at DCA's page regarding the waivers, and they have put in some kind of layman kind of interpretation of that language. But as far as those extensions that we have listed in the materials today, that we can't clean those up. Those are the waivers that were issued when that capture in time. But again, we concur with the frustration. It is kind of confusing to try to explain it to stakeholders, licensees who have that question. Rest assured, we provide it to them in a very kind of simple and truncated way in the sense that March to July 1, you get an additional 6 months after July 1, just to try and make it as easy to understand as possible. And
I appreciate that, and knowing that this language is taken directly from their language helps me a little bit, but doesn't help me overall. And then just the final phrase that within 6 months of the date of the order. To me, the date of the order is the date that it was adopted. So, for example, F is dated March 30th, 2021, but it's actually intended to be after that.
Right.
To me, the date of the order is the date it's written, not the date of the final inclusive date of the order.
And you'll see we have kind of similar difficulties with the other exceptions and waivers and the expiration dates listed those in the same way. But we're providing as much information as we can to those that are affected. One of the interesting things to note, especially with that particular waiver of continuing education, is in conversations with the Department of Consumer Affairs, we were not one of the boards that found a need or necessity to waive this particular exemption any further. Online courses are provided. There's plenty of content out there for our licensees to receive continuing education within the renewal period that they're trying to attain it in. But because this waiver affects all of Division 2, we're included in it whether we like it or not.
Right.
You'll see a couple of those with the examination delay and that kind of thing, where the National Physical Therapy examination was not offline for a significant period of time, and applicants weren't being delayed in taking the exam, so we didn't find it necessary. But because of the way the exemption is written, and it was necessary for, say, another healthcare board, again, we're affected by that because it's a broad brush kind of approach to the waiver. I do anticipate these waivers not being extended again. And once that happens, we'll be able to do, an informational campaign to kind of iron it all out at that point.
Thank you. I do have another question with regard to the waiver, the third waiver, examination requirement for continued PT treatment. And I'm wondering if the PTBC has received or has been made aware of any complaints or patient harm related to the inability of a patient to attend an in-person physician visit?
We are not, and the creation of that waiver wasn't driven by anything like that either. Very early on in the pandemic, we were asked to kind of look at our laws and think of anything that we might see a waiver for. In collaboration with stakeholders, it was identified, direct access may be an issue. And we looked at the idea of maybe changing, 12 visits, 45-day periods, or something like, more visits and more days. But ultimately, what we realized was it was very easy for consumers to get telemedicine with their general practitioners. And so if we just remove that in-person, that would provide enough for people to continue services to direct access. I haven't actually received any feedback from licensees or consumers about this particular waiver, whether it was being exercised or not.
And so this waiver was particular to the physical therapy board because of our requirement. Okay. And yeah, that it's just a data point to be aware of as to whether we've received or been made aware of any complaints or patient harm issues. So that we haven't is a wonderful thing.
And we have, kept an eye out for it and looked for it. And again, staff in the enforcement unit, the complaint intake unit, has been briefed and aware to look for those kind of complaints, but we had not received any. And again, we didn't receive any to cause it. So it was just something that we were trying to be proactive in. And in our caution, we're thankful that it was never needed.
Or perhaps it was needed and it's working.
Absolutely.
Because I do see that in home health. There have been times where patients showed up for an appointment and were sent home.
Sure.
Or didn't get that appointment with their physician for a few weeks. So it's a good thing, I think. Yeah. Great questions and comments, Dr. Drummer. Any others from the board members? Ms. Ellaby, how are you doing? Any comments or questions on any of the waivers?
No, seems like Daniel summarized all of my questions, the uncertainty with the dates and things like that.
Okay. So moderator, can you please facilitate public comment on waivers?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator, and Madam President, I see no request for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, the time is 10:25. I think it's a good time to take a short break. Let's do about 10 minutes, if that's okay with everyone. Let's be back at 10:35.
Am I the only one who can't hear anything?
This is the moderator, and Tanya, I can hear you. I wasn't sure if people were not back from break yet or what was going on.
This is Katerina. I'm back.
This is Dale. I'm back.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure there was nothing going on and I just couldn't hear you. Cool.
You're not alone in the dark. It's okay. We're all here. Well, most of us are here.
Okay.
Perhaps the clocks move slower on the second floor.
I suspect they use calendars on the second floor.
This is the moderator, and it appears that the board staff are struggling to get their audio up. So we're going to put up the technical difficulty slide and give them a moment to get their audio hooked up.
Can you hear us now, Tricia?
Hi, yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. The time is 10:43. We are back from break, and I'd just like to have a roll call to make sure that we're all here, please.
Alicia Benaman. Here. Dale Armstrong.
Present.
Jesus Dominguez.
Present.
Daniel Drummer.
Present.
Katarina Ellaby.
Present.
Jonathan Irvin. Jonathan Irvin is absent. Tanya McMillian.
Present.
All members are present with the exception of Jonathan Irvin, and the board has a quorum.
Thank you. We are at agenda item number 9, our Consumer and Professional Associations and Intergovernmental Relations Report. Staff, any report on FSBPT?
We have been attending webinars as part of the Leadership Issues Forum pretty consistently about every 2 to 3 weeks. But one thing that I did want to bring to the board's attention that was announced today by FSBPT is that they are having a regulation training. Members might remember that they had a regulation training the month before last, and we wanted to get as much attendance as we could for that. It's very beneficial. The speaker of that presentation is Dale Atkinson, who is an attorney that specializes in professional regulation. It's very enlightening. It's a lot of information, very high level and philosophical. I think, I couldn't encourage you guys enough to do it. The next one is in August, the 28th through the 30th, and it is being provided virtually. So if it works for your schedule, again, I would highly encourage you to participate in that. The agreement that we have with FSBPT moving into 2022 is that they are going to be providing the training twice a year, once in person and once virtually. And so it's something that, again, I think is extremely beneficial for members, especially for those that are thinking about participating with the Federation in committees or task forces or anything like that. So again, August 28th through the 30th, If you have any questions about the training, feel free to contact me offline and I can walk you through the registration process and just the overall benefit that you might receive from the training itself.
Thank you for that. I do think those of us who've been board members for some time have all gone through board member training at some point, and I was able to attend the last one. I was concerned because I really wanted to attend, but I knew I couldn't attend the third day. And so they were very flexible with allowing me to attend the first 2 days. And it was absolutely beneficial. Even with some experience now under my belt, there's a lot that I still learned. So if it's been some time, I encourage you to sign up and just let them know if there's a reason or if you cannot attend all 3 days. But again, I learned so much just by going even after these few years in between. I actually wish I could go more. If you do receive the emails from FSBPT on their trainings that they're offering intermittently, I've also been able to hop onto a couple of those. So keep your eye open because Dale actually every once in a while has one of those sessions carved out for him. So any other board member comment on FSBPT?
Madam President, this is Jesus. Just a quick update on the annual meeting. Obviously, it's going to be virtual this year, but they plan on hosting that in the city of Orange, California for 2022. So that's the plan anyway.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Dominguez, are you still on a committee?
I am. I'm on the education committee. So we've
Thank
just
you.
been interacting virtually and just planning out the programming.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for serving.
A pleasure to do so.
Next, we move on to Department of Consumer Affairs.
I don't know that we have a representative from DCA to provide an update.
Jason, I'm here.
Excellent. So we do have Mr. Ryan Perez. I was not sure if he was going to be presenting or not, so I will leave the floor to you, Mr. Perez.
Excellent. Good morning, Board President Ravenna Amen and board members, Executive Officer Kaiser, and board staff. I'm Ryan Perez with Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs, and thank you for allowing me to provide a department update. COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our work for more than a year now. California reached a major milestone on June 15th, and our economy is officially back open. Thank you to Executive Officer Kaiser and board staff who have been working so very hard to maintain excellent customer service through these challenging times. As Mr. Kaiser previously mentioned, board staff, like all state employees, have made a sacrifice to assist all Californians when they continued to serve through the pandemic under a 10% pay cut, some also foregoing cost of living increases or other expected raises. But as the economy fully reopens, we are happy to see that these cuts will be reversed effective June 30th, and DCA is working with all boards and bureaus to manage any budgetary impacts. Now we know that things are moving quickly and there's a lot of information out there, both official and seemingly more so unofficial. But on June 17th, Governor Newsom signed an executive order which expedited Cal OSHA's revised COVID-19 regulations to ensure consistency with public health guidance. Cal OSHA's revisions align with the latest face covering guidance from the California Department of Public Health and eliminate physical distancing requirements except for certain employees during outbreaks. Boards and bureaus are assessing operational needs to identify potential or permanent changes to the workplace to ensure efficiency and employee well-being, such as telework and hybrid workplace models. Along those lines, DCA is receiving many questions about when and how boards will meet again in person and whether they can continue to meet remotely. The ability of the board to meet remotely is tied directly to the governor's executive orders and the declared state of emergency. The executive order allowing remote meetings is set to expire September 30th, after which time the board will be required to follow all aspects of the Open Meetings Act, including publicly noticed and accessible locations, unless a change in law happens prior to. Now, despite it being nice seeing everyone in person, I think we all recognize the value of the cost savings and increased public participation associated with remote meeting options. In the meantime, DCA will do all it can to assist boards and bureaus to transition safely to in-person meetings and keep you informed of any changes to meeting requirements. During the state of emergency, DCA has issued waivers with some interesting date choices to help licensees respond to the pandemic and to enable boards and bureaus to perform their functions safely. As the state fully reopens, waivers will wind down. DCA continues to encourage boards and bureaus to look at laws and regulations that were waived, determine if changes are needed in the future, and move forward with such changes. Although some waivers may extend an additional short amount of time, we will begin winding those down probably within the next month or so. Boards and bureaus are encouraged to move forward with statutory and regulatory changes as soon as possible, however. To shift into an administrative update, for current board members, 2021 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year, which means that all employees and board members are required to complete the training during this calendar year. Please also be advised that you will now access this training through the Learning Management System, which is DCA's new training portal. We have created profiles for each of you in the LMS and have informed your executive officer of the steps you'll need to take to log in and access the training. Board and Bureau Relations is also happy to assist you with any questions or concerns you may have about using the LMS. Ultimately, this system will house your training records and may also be used to sign up for other mandatory trainings, including the board member orientation training. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help, and if there's anything that we can do to assist, please feel free to reach out. That concludes my presentation, and I will hand it back over to Board President Rebecca Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for that report. Any questions or comments from board members? And hearing none, I think we will move on to agenda item 9C, which is the CPTA report.
I believe we have Stacy Defoe in the queue, if she can be made a panelist.
This is the moderator. I just made Stacy a panelist. So Stacy, you are able to unmute yourself now.
Okay, I think I figured it out. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Stacy Defoe. I'm Executive Director for California Physical Therapy Association. Do I have an echo?
Your connection is a little muffled and an echo.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Thank you. I think it's something on my end. But thank you for having us to provide this update. I just wanted to update you on a couple things. You may have read in our PT notes that registration is now open for our virtual conference, October 9th and 10th. If you're interested in attending, you can find information on our website at ccapta.org. You should be able to link directly from the front page to find information on that. One thing about our annual conference, you probably know that it will be held virtually again this year. We are pleased to offer the board space in our virtual exhibit hall. That will be held Saturday, October 9th at 2:30 p.m. So if that's something you're interested in, you can contact Rita Pearson in our office. And then we're really looking forward to welcome everyone back to an in-person conference in 2022, September 24th and 25th in Anaheim. We continue to be busier than ever, serving our members in all areas in a mostly virtual environment still. And we've been busier than ever, I think, providing continuing education opportunities for PTs and PTAs. We hold webinar Wednesdays, most Wednesdays, to provide opportunities to gain knowledge and meet CE requirements. And we are now providing CI courses virtually as well, and have been for a few months, and those seem to be going well. And this will continue through the year. At this point, we don't have any planned in-person courses, but are looking and will determine if it's feasible to perhaps add one or two later in the year on how things go. And looking at the agenda, we're pleased and appreciative to see that AB 1468, which was CPTA's sponsored utilization review bill, was included on the agenda. Unfortunately, the bill was held in Appropriations Committee suspense and won't go forward this year. We are regrouping to determine how best to move forward on that issue, and we'll provide updates as we know more. We can talk more about that later in the agenda if you like. There's another utilization bill included on the agenda, which is AB 250, introduced by Senator Pan, who's chair of the Senate Health Committee and a Democrat. This bill would also enhance transparency in the governance of health service plans and insurers. The largest probably change that this bill would make would be granting individual health professionals a deemed approved status for 2 years based on an algorithm that the health plan or that the MHC comes up with and that the health plans would follow. And this would exempt healthcare professionals from the plans or prospective utilization review for the services that the insurer plan covers. And CPTA is supporting this bill as it moves forward and are happy to share more information later in the agenda when that issue comes up as well. So that's all I have to update for now, but would be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Thank you, as always, Stacy. Any board member question or comment? Any staff comments?
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely, and if you can hang on just a moment, I wonder if Ryan is still with us as well, or someone from Department of Consumer Affairs. I'd like to ask the moderator to please open public comment, facilitate public comment for agenda item number 9, either comment on FSCPT, BCA, or CPTA, please.
All right, thank you, Madam Board President. I have opened up the Q&A panel, and if any members of the public would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator, and at this time I see no request for public comment. Madam Board President, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And agenda item number 10 was going to be an update. Just want to make sure everyone mutes their microphone, please. We're getting an echo over here. Jason, an update on agenda item number 10?
So for 10, we were going to have what is kind of our semi-annual update and processes for the Division of Investigation, essentially an explanation of services to board members as a refresher and an introduction for new members. They did have a calendar conflict with some cases and hearings, so they're not able to provide that update to us at this meeting, but we will defer it to the September meeting and potentially combine it with a presentation of services from the Division of Investigation as well as a presentation of services from the Department of Justice Attorney General's office.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 11, the legislation report, please.
So June 4th brought the legislative deadline requiring all bills to be out of the first house. Any bills that remained in their house of origin were marked 2-year and may not be heard again until January of 2022. I included a graph on the briefing paper which showed how many bills failed to pass this legislative session versus last legislative session. It did show that 73 bills failed to pass out of the first house this session. 51 bills failed the same deadline in 2019, which is a 43% increase in bills this session. July 14th is the next legislative deadline, which requires all fiscal bills to be out of their second house policy committees and moved on to appropriations. September 3rd is the last day to amend bills on the floor, and September 10th is the last day for each house to pass bills. October 10th is the last day for the governor to sign or veto bills, and the statutes will all take effect January 1st of 2022. I'll go ahead and direct members to the legislative summary, which begins on page 52, and I'll go ahead and go through each bill that the board is watching for any type of potential impact. AB2, Regulations, Legislative Review, Regulatory Reform, is now a 2-year bill as it failed the legislative deadline, so it may be acted upon January of 2022. This bill, which is pretty similar to other bills that we've seen in previous legislative sessions, would have required state agencies to identify and resolve any regulations that are duplicative, overlapping, inconsistent, or out of date, and report those revisions to the legislature and the governor. AB 29, State Bodies Meeting, is now also a 2-year bill and may be acted upon in January of 2022. This bill would have required a meeting notice to include all writings and materials for the meeting, and would also require writings and materials to be posted to the board's website 72 hours in advance of the meeting. And it would also prohibit the board from discussing any of these writings and materials or taking action on any item unless the state body complied with all the provisions in the bill. AB 54, COVID-19 emergency order violation, failed to pass the Assembly Business and Professions Committee. This bill would have prohibited the DCA and alcoholic beverage control from revoking a license for violating emergency health orders unless it could be shown that the violation resulted in the direct transmission of COVID-19. The most recent amendment on April 5th, 2021 did exclude healing arts boards from the bill, from the provisions of the bill. Okay, the next bill is AB 105, the Upward Mobility Act of 2021, Boards and Commissions, Civil Service Examinations, Classifications. And this bill currently is in the Senate Judiciary Committee. This bill would, among other provisions, establish that it is the policy of the state that the composition of state boards and commissions be broadly reflective of the general public, removing reference to ethnic minorities or women from this policy. This bill would also require on or after January 1st of 2022, all state boards and commissions consisting of 1 or more volunteer members or commissioners to have at least 1 volunteer board member or commissioner from an underrepresented community as defined. This bill would further clarify that new board or commission members should be replaced under the parameters of the bill as vacancies occur on the board. This bill did have a recent amendment on 6/23 of 2021. The committee recommended amendments that restore STB's lead role as intended by the Constitution in various parts of the bill. Although where appropriate, it also accepts the bill's changes that require CalHR to also be have more of an active role than it has under current law. And that authority will be either discretionary or dependent on STB's cooperation. So that's an amendment that the legislature did recommend. Okay, AB 107, licensure veterans and military spouses, is currently in the Senate Business and Professions Committee. This bill would require most boards and bureaus within DCA to issue temporary licenses to military spouses meeting specified criteria. Temporary licenses would be required to be issued within 30 days of receiving an application if the results of a criminal background check do not show grounds for denial. Regulations to implement this bill would be due to the department by June 15th, 2022, if required. The department would also be required to submit an annual report to the legislature on licensure of military members, veterans, and spouses. This bill was recently amended on 6/21, and the most recent amendment would require an applicant for a temporary license to provide to the board documentation that the applicant has passed the California Law and Ethics examination if otherwise required by the board for the profession or vocation for which the applicant is seeking licensure for. PTPC is excluded from the provisions of this bill as it exempts boards from the temporary license requirements if the board already has a similar process in place, which PTPC does. Okay, AB 225, DCA boards, veterans, military spouses licenses, is currently in the Senate Business and Professions Committee. This bill would expand the provisions of the military spouse temporary licensure program to apply to military veterans who have been other than dishonorably discharged and active duty military members with orders for separation in 90 days. AB 305, Veteran Services Notices, is currently in the Senate Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. This bill would eliminate the requirement that state agencies inquire as to veteran status and replace it with a requirement that specified state agencies acquire to the veteran status on an application form and request permission to transmit the applicant's information to the Department of Veterans Affairs. AB 339, State and Local Government Open and Public Meetings, is currently in the Senate Governance and Finance Committee. This bill would require open and public meetings to allow the public to attend and comment via telephone or internet. In addition, it also requires all open and public meetings to include an in-person public comment opportunity, except in specified circumstances during a declared state of local emergency. This bill's provisions also require all open and public meetings to provide the public with an opportunity to comment on proposed legislation in person and remotely via telephone or an internet-based service option as specified in the parameters of the bill. AB 646, DCA Boards Expunge Convictions, is now a 2-year bill as it failed the legislative deadline, and it may also be acted upon January 2022. This bill would have required boards and bureaus under DCA that post information on their website about a revoked license when the revocation is due to a criminal conviction to update or remove information about the revoked license should the board receive an expungement order related to the conviction. Additionally, this bill would have authorized the board to charge a fee to perform these activities, which would not be able to exceed the necessary cost of administering the provisions of the bill. AB 657, State Civil Service System, Personnel Services, Contracts, Professionals, is currently in the Senate Governmental Organization Committee. This bill would prohibit a state agency from contracting with an outside professional for a period of no more than 365 consecutive days or 365 non-consecutive days over 2 years. The bill would define professional to include, among others, a physician and surgeon, dentist, clinical psychologist, and pharmacist. This bill was recently amended to exempt DCA boards and bureaus. AB 885, Badgley-Keene Open Meeting Act, teleconferencing, is now also a 2-year bill as it failed the legislative deadline and again may be acted upon in January of 2022. This bill would have amended the teleconferencing statutes of the Badgley-Keene Act to require public meetings held via teleconference to be both audibly and visually observable to the public. Additionally, this bill would have clarified that only one primary physical meeting location would need to be disclosed and held open for public participation, and affirm all members of the state body participating in the meeting remotely would still count towards a quorum. AB 1026, Business Licenses Veterans, is also now a 2-year bill. It failed the legislative deadline and will be acted upon possibly in January of 2022. This bill would have required boards and bureaus to reduce initial licensing fees for honorably discharged veterans by 50%. Applicants would also have been required to submit satisfactory evidence of their honorably discharged veteran by providing a copy of the driver's license or identification card with the word veteran printed on it. AB 1236, Healing Arts Licensees Data Collection, is also now a 2-year bill as it failed the legislative deadline. This bill would have required standardized the licensee demographic data that must be collected by all healing arts boards. In addition, several board-specific data collection requirements would be repealed. This bill specified that aggregate information collected must be posted on each board's website and provided to the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. AB 1273, Interagency Advisory Committee on Apprenticeship, Director of DCA and Public Health Officer, is currently in the Senate Health Committee. This bill would add the DCA and Department of Public Health to an Interagency Advisory Committee on Apprenticeship to increase communication amongst California's professional licensing programs about potential earn and learn opportunities. This bill would also further prohibit DCA and its programs from preventing applicants from licensure from earning credits or experience through an earn and learn program. AB 1386, License Fees, Military Partners, and Spouses, is now a 2-year bill as it failed the legislative deadline, and again, it could be acted upon in January of 2022. This bill would have prohibited a board or bureau under DCA from charging initial or original license fees to an applicant who holds a current similar license in another state and is the spouse of an active duty member of the armed forces of the U.S. stationed in California. AB 1486, prior authorization, is also now a 2-year bill as it failed the legislative deadline. This bill would have required a health care service plan or health insurer that implements an automated prior authorization system to use evidence-based clinical guidelines to program the system and to make the algorithms used for the system available for download on the plans or insurer's provider's internet website. Additionally, this bill would have required a plan or insurer that implements an automated prior authorization system to ensure that a licensed physician or a licensed healthcare professional makes the decision to deny or modify a request by examining the request specific to the enrollee or insured and does not simply ratify an automated response. SB 102, COVID-19 Emergency Order Violation License Revocation, failed passage in committee in April. This bill would have prohibited the Department of Consumer Affairs or Alcohol Beverage Control from revoking a license for failing to comply with emergency health orders, unless it could be shown that the violation resulted in transmission of COVID. Healing arts boards would have been also exempt from the provisions of this bill. The next bill is SB 250, Healthcare Coverage, and this bill is currently in the Assembly Committee on Health. This bill would establish a process for deemed approved status for individual health professionals, prospective treatment, utilization review required by health plans and health insurers. It also requires health plans and health insurers to reimburse a contracting individual health professional the full contracted rate, including the amount of in-network patient cost sharing for the services provided to an enrollee or insured in a contracting health facility. This bill requires health plans and insurers to bill and collect the cost sharing from enrollees and insurers. SB 607, Professions and Vocations, is currently in the Assembly Business and Professions Committee. SB 607 is a Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development Committee's omnibus bill, and it makes several changes to the operations of a number of boards and bureaus under DCA. Specifically, the provision that would be applicable to PTBC would be to require a board within DCA to waive all fees for an initial license, in addition to the expedited licensure process for an applicant who is married to or in a domestic partnership or other legal union with an active duty member of the armed forces in the United States and holds a current license in another state or territory. The next bill is SB 731, Criminal Records Relief, and this bill is currently in the Assembly Public Safety Committee. This bill would continue recent criminal justice reforms by, among other things, expanding felonies that are eligible for automatic record sealing to include convictions for certain felonies that resulted in incarceration, as long as the individual has completed their sentence and has also not been convicted of a new felony offense for 4 years. And the last bill on the legislative summary is SB 772, Professions and Vocations Citations Minor Violations. And this is now a 2-year bill as it failed the legislative deadline and may be acted upon in January of 2022. This bill would have prohibited the assessment of an administrative fine for minor violations if the licensee corrects the violation within 30 days. Minor violations are defined in the bill as those that did not pose a serious health or safety threat or were not willful, did not occur while on probation, and are not violations that the licensee has a history of committing.
That is a lot. I'm impressed. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yes. Staff or board member comments?
This is Daniel. Because maybe it's because this list is such a big list this time. But I'm wondering if it might be possible to include just a short sentence or two of why we're watching each particular bill. What is it of interest or potential interest to us, to the PTBC, about each particular item? Because some of the items seem very clear and others don't seem as clear. And if just a simple sentence or two could be added as to why we're watching it, why they've appeared on our radar, would be helpful.
Great suggestion. Any other board comments?
I did have a question about a couple of the specific bills. With regard to AB 105, boards and commissions, classifications, it doesn't seem totally clear to me as to who's responsible for monitoring who is on the board. And when there's multiple different appointing authorities, who communicates to, if we know that the governor's office has responsibility for appointing some of ours, and then somebody from the Senate and then somebody from the Assembly are responsible for each appointing one. But so if there aren't any minority members or underrepresented community members on the board at that time, but the next appointing person, say it's the governor. The governor then has responsibility for trying to seek an underrepresented community member. But if it falls to, say, is it who's the member of the Senate who makes the appointment?
Pro tem.
The pro tem. So if the only remaining position is a person from an underrepresented committee, but the pro tem has an intended other individual and that they want to see, where does that, it seems to either require that the Senate pro tem investigate other individuals or try to find a different individual versus maybe just leaving the position open until somebody else fills a position where an underrepresented member needs to be.
So early on in the conversations about this bill, that was brought up and discussed amongst the DCA boards, because the general question is, how would it be enforced, right? Who would be responsible for what?
Right.
The question was handed up to the author's office, but the question was never answered. So in discussion at the DCA level, we kind of came to the conclusion that this is really an expression of intent. And the example that you painted is a very good one, in the sense that if there were no minorities categories represented on a particular board, the next vacancy, the intent is whoever might be up, whether it is and all board composition is different. Some boards have multiple governor appointments and multiple Senate and multiple Assembly appointments, but whoever the next vacancy would be responsible for tackling that. But it does seem like in the actual mechanics of the language, there's really no enforceable section of the statute. It is just an expression of intent.
Okay. And then are there examples of boards where, it seems kind of unusual that there would be a board that didn't have any of the listed underrepresented communities. Are there any examples of boards where it's not the case, where this is an intended target? Do we know?
We have an idea.
Okay.
That's probably the best way to answer that question, and it's not any of the boards that you might be familiar with in allied health. That's probably as far as I could answer that question.
Thank you. That's
but
good.
It is not, it's nothing specific to DCA is a better way to put it.
Okay. And then there's other language that's in the longer summary of the bill that's on pages 60 and 61 that seem to me to go more towards civil service employees. And does the bill encompass both appointed board members, appointed volunteer board members, and then civil service employees, or is there just a big blurring of all of this?
That I don't have the answer to. I'll have to research that a little bit more and get back to you.
Because it looks like it may just be amending in multiple different places to be able to address things.
There was a concern early on in the discussion, as kind of Brooke touched on, the involvement of CalHR.
Right.
That is really the introduction of civil service employees. And while board members are voluntary because you receive per diem, you are technically civil service employees under contracts and fall under the guise and auspices of CalHR. In the early versions of this bill, SPB and CalHR were omitted completely. They weren't thought of. And so through conversation, it was brought back in that, they should be part of this. But again, as Brooke kind of touched on, it would be contingent on CalHR's own willingness to participate in how this language is formed. So I think they're just covering their bases in the sense between volunteer and per diem based compensation.
Okay, and I guess part of my confusion then, maybe an assumption of mine, was that with the removal of board members from the retirement contribution system, that we were then no longer considered employees or under CalHR, but if we are still under CalHR overall, then that kind of clears up the cloudiness.
Well, I mean, a little bit. I think you're correct in the interpretation with the retirement contributions when they clearly said that board members weren't entitled to that because of their volunteer work and per diem compensation. Here, I think the concern was kind of to your earlier point is where's the enforceable part of the statute? Who's going to be maintaining it? Is it up to the boards to maintain it? Is it up to the appointing powers to maintain it? Is it up to even CalHR to maintain it? And I think they just looped CalHR back in because of that concern.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question about AB 339 and just wondering how it potentially applies to us as a board, a licensing board, because in reading on page 73, to me it seems that it's really applicable to city and county council board meetings with at least 250,000 people in their jurisdiction. So I wasn't clear on how, or is it just because it's going on, this is potential, and that down the road it might have some impact on us? Is that the intent of us watching it, or was there something more specific?
I think them localizing and specifying the counties and city jurisdictions by size is just to say, because we fall under the Open Meetings Act generally at the state level, that they wanted to ensure that larger jurisdictions, counties, Southern California counties that are, larger than 250,000 population would also be affected by this bill.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for those comments, Dr. Drummer. Any other board comments or questions? Any other staff comments?
The thing I think that's unusual in this, with the volume of bills that we brought to your attention and to address Dr. Drummer's concern of, why and how these are brought, some of these were brought because they had a direct effect, and we did have, as staff, we're going to ask for recommendations for support, if you will, and then those bills died in committee. So much ado about nothing. Here is this large legislative report that we were very, involved in early on in the process and thought that we would have a lot to present to you as board and asking for position papers. And every one of those is now no longer on the table. So I appreciate Dr. Drummer's comment, and we will look at trying to come up with some language as to why certain bills are on this list and how they affect the board, and maybe like a grading system of, hot to watch kind of thing, or a thermometer. Like some of these things are listed here solely for informational purposes because they will affect the PT profession, not necessarily the regulation of the PT profession. But it's always something that, we want to provide as information to the members. So we'll look at a little bit, an idea of how to go about relaying that a little bit better.
Thank you. Thanks for your work on this, Brooke. Moderator, can you please facilitate public comment on agenda item number 11?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. And we do have Stacy Defoe who would like to make a comment. So Stacy, you have been unmuted.
Hello again, this is Stacy Defoe, Executive Director for California Physical Therapy Association. I wanted to make a couple of points. One on AB 1468. It was mentioned that this was a 2-year bill. I just wanted to clarify that this bill was held in suspense and wasn't granted a 2-year status. So this bill is dead at this point. So the concept isn't dead. We're still very interested in it, and we'll determine how best to go from here. But this particular bill, AB 1468, is no longer. And then I wanted to bring up SB 250, the bill from Senator Pan, and just, I guess, request the board to consider maybe taking a support position on this board. This is, on this bill. This is a bill that CBTA is now, has been interested in, but is now very interested because this is the utilization review public protection bill going forward at this point. And CPTA has taken a support position and will be attempting to generate some grassroots on it as well, and wanted to see if the PT board might also consider looking at it for a support position. Thank you.
This is the moderator. This is the moderator, and there are no further requests for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Board or staff comment on SB 250?
SB 250 is, again, one of those bills that doesn't necessarily touch on the regulation of the profession, but is why the reason that we've included it here is because it will affect the profession as a whole. So staff doesn't have any kind of recommendation as to support or oppose, but again, to the pleasure of the board, as you direct, we will write what you would like.
I'll open it up for board member comment and discussion. Anyone feels one way or the other or has comment about it, please chime in. Sounds like we're a little stuck. And so hearing no discussion and no motion, I'm going to go ahead and move forward to agenda item number 12, which is the rulemaking report.
You might not be able to hear us.
Moderator, are you able to hear us?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. I think there was just a little prolonged silence. I don't think we had any difficulties.
Okay, before I move on to rulemaking report, agenda item number 12, just one more opportunity for any board discussion on SB 250, and I'll just pause for a moment to give everyone a chance to possibly comment.
The only, Madam President, just one added point. The only thing that I would add to this with SB 250 in mind is that this may be the only and last opportunity for the board to express any kind of support or opposition. The bills are scheduled to pass the last House on September 10th, and our meeting is shortly after that. We would have an opportunity to provide a letter of support to the governor's office, because because we would have up until October 10th for that. So just something for the members to keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay, hearing no comment, I'm going to move forward to agenda item number 12, the rulemaking report.
I'll go ahead and provide an update on the 6 rulemaking items that are on the board rulemaking calendar for 2021. And this calendar is submitted to OAL annually to project rulemaking workload for the year. The first item on there is the disciplinary guidelines. For the disciplinary guidelines, the initial rulemaking package was submitted to agency for review on April 20th, 2021, and it was returned with suggested edits from agency on May 12th. We addressed agency suggestions and resubmitted the initial rulemaking package back to agency on June 10th, 2021.
And this was for which one? I'm sorry.
The disciplinary guidelines?
Okay. That's why we're not seeing it in the materials, because there's been some action lately.
There's some action on that one.
Okay.
So it is moving forward in the process. So we're just waiting to hear back on that one. We also have some movement with the 2138, which I'll address later as well. But the coursework tool is the next item on the list, and it was submitted to DCA Legal on September 1st, 2020 for their review. On April 20th, 2021, it was returned with suggested edits, and staff are currently working on these edits to return the package back to legal soon. The performance evaluation tool regulation documents were submitted to DCA in September 2020, and upon further review, DCA Legal and the Office of Administrative Law both determined that both the performance evaluation tool and the clinical performance instrument would need to be incorporated by reference. And since this is a non-substantive change, the language would need to be modified to reflect this. So we would have to modify the language to incorporate both documents by reference, and that is within the executive officer's delegation.
So on your flow charts that come a little below, where exactly is that one reg?
So this one is still with DCA Legal. We'll have to make the changes to the proposed language, and then we'll go ahead and resubmit the package back to them for their review.
The one thing that's not represented in this kind of flow chart is the back and forth that happens between DCA counsel and and PTBC staff. So as Brooke stated, kind of in conjunction with DCA counsel and OAL's counsel, it was determined that those two forms should be incorporated by reference. It's not a substantive change because we cite them in the statute. Incorporating by reference is now just also providing the tools themselves as part of the package. So through my delegation, we've included that, made those changes that were recommended by DCA counsel and OAL, and then submitted back for the kind of a final review before it's pushed up to agency for their review.
Okay. And then
So progress.
It's moving. And as far as the flow charts go, which page is that particular?
It's on page 98 of the meeting materials, and it's the first one on the page.
The very first one?
And so you can see with the flow chart with the green, it just shows that it was submitted to DCA for their initial review. And again, the initial review process is them looking at the initial statement of reasons, just the beginning of the rulemaking package. That's before it goes to be noticed with agency, or excuse me, with OAL.
Okay.
The next two milestones there that you see, DCA submitting to agency and then PTBC filing the notice with OAL. PTBC filing the notice with OAL is like the big monumental milestone where we've actually started the rulemaking process with OAL and we're following timelines, and if a hearing is requested, public comment, those kind of things. So we're close to getting past the initial phase of review. We still have that one more phase where we go to DCAs and then go to agency. And I'm sure that there will be some kind of questions and comments, and we'll address those, as quickly as we can. But for lack lack of a better word, we're excited because progress is actually happening.
Well, I was going to say I really appreciate the flow chart, and like to hear from other board members as well. I mean, the flow chart not only shows us the steps, but it gives us the dates. And I mean, I know we have the new reg unit, but it seems before the new reg unit, I don't know. I guess I can't say for sure how quickly things moved. The dates just seem to be pretty far apart here.
The one element of information that's missing from the existing flow chart is where you see submitted to DCA for initial phase review 9 of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
There may be some way that we can provide an update in that box that there has been kind of a back and forth that happens, and so the most recent entry into that box, I believe, would have been the first week of this month. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing that you can't see. We try to address it in the notes down below, but it's not part of the visual. And then I think, you know, the next milestone that you'll see in September could possibly be both submits to agency for review and files notice with OAL, and whatever the coordinating dates are with those two milestones.
Yeah. I think I'm just trying to get a sense of what's reasonable as far as the time frame. Nothing's on fire, you know, in our face.
Right.
But I'm just trying to get a sense of a reasonable timeline for reg. What that is.
We've discussed this kind of previously, whether or not this idea of the reg unit has expedited the process. And I think the experience right now is no. To their credit, though, maybe early on in stages, we are still trying to kind of figure out the logistics of how these reviews will work. And we are involving some of the approval agencies earlier, such as agency, in the initial review, where normally they wouldn't have gotten it until we've already gone to OAL and come out the other side. So because of a new system and its implementation, there are some growing pains. And we've had lengthy conversation with DCA exec and the regulation units itself. And as of late, at least since the last time that this board met, we have seen progress with the packages that I would describe as satisfactory. I'm happy with the movement that's happening so far.
That's good to hear, and I again would like to hear from other board members. And I'm wondering if perhaps a presentation at a future board meeting from the reg unit, or maybe even from board staff, giving board members a perspective of the process and the timeline that happened before the reg unit, what we're seeing now, and what's reasonably, you know, expected in the future. Again, nothing on fire, but just kind of for board members, good to know.
That's certainly something that we can ask DCA to provide. Mm-hmm. I hesitate in offering to provide it from the staff level only because we are navigating in the dark also, right? So we have some of the same questions that the board has, but it is certainly something that we would ask DCA to provide when I either the September meeting or the December meeting.
Okay, that would be great. Can I stop you right there, Brooke, and just see if board members have any comments on that?
To be honest, this is Daniel. The timeline and processing of regulation to me has really been very much a mystery. I do appreciate seeing the dates and the approximate dates about when things happen. The amount of back and forth that goes on that ends up delaying things. Just looking at our own disciplinary guidelines for the latest version, which has been in the works now for, I believe, I think around 4 years, something like that. It's truly been a big frustration for me as to hoping to have been able to just get things done, and that it doesn't happen that way, has been a challenge.
Okay, I'm just allowing the awkward pause to occur to see if there's any other comment from board members.
Madam President, just real quick, nothing that hasn't been said already, but I've just always assumed that whatever box the flow chart is sitting in, it's at that point a ping pong match between the board and whatever unit it's sitting with. And I guess maybe in my mind, I'm always curious as to, terrible analogy here, but which side of the net the ball is on. But I do appreciate sort of the summary comments below that give some reference to how it's progressing in a particular box at the moment in time.
I have a follow-up comment to that comment. It may sound somewhat of like a self-serving kind of pat on the back, but I will say that the ping pong match analogy makes sense to me, because I will say for PTDC staff, we tend to hit the ball back very quickly. And I think it's kind of a pride of ownership in the package, that they want to see the package move as quickly as possible and don't want to be responsible for any kind of delays. And I've had PTDC staff threaten me with retirement for some of these packages, but we share the same frustrations. So again, we hit the ball back as quickly as we can, and then it's just this anticipation of when the ball will come back onto our side of the net. So thank you for helping me with that analogy, Dr. Dominguez.
My pleasure, sir. I'm always confident that we hit that ball back pretty quickly.
Just like a badminton. Okay, so Ms. McMillian, Ms. Ellaby, Dr. Armstrong, anything to add?
This is Katerina. I agree. I would definitely feel like the board would benefit from a training. So I look forward to hearing from the reg unit.
I agree.
This is Tanya. I agree also.
All right. Thanks for letting us veer off just a little with rulemaking. I'll allow you to continue, Brett.
Well, picking up with the 2138 regs, those have been moving pretty quickly. So we're pretty excited to report that agency approved the regulation on June 23rd, and it will be filed with OAL by the end of this week. And that's the final rulemaking, the final phase of the rulemaking. So it's getting a lot closer. So we're excited to see that. The next item is the retired license status. And we did present proposed language at the March meeting for board consideration, and we are working with DCA Legal to address concerns with the language, and we'll be presenting proposed language again at a future meeting coming up soon. And the last item on the rulemaking list is the continuing competency regulations, and we're still in the research stages of this one, and we anticipate being able to bring proposed language hopefully soon for board consideration.
For members, just kind of a peek into prioritization. Seeing continuing competency on the list for quite some time with little to no progress. As a result of COVID-19 and the exemptions and those kind of things, continuing competency by prioritization has kind of fell by the wayside a little bit. Resources have been diverted from continuing competency to applications. And with the recent extension for the continuing education waiver to July 1, and then 6 months after that, it may not be something that we try to address until 2023.
Okay. Thank you. Any further board comments on the regulation report, rulemaking report? Okay, moderator, can you please facilitate public comment?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I am opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. This is the moderator, and at this time I see no request for public comment. Madam President, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to talk out loud just a little bit here. We've got some reports coming up. We've got another opportunity for public comment for items not on the agenda, items for future meetings, and then closed session. It's 12:50. Should we tackle some reports now or break into lunch and come back?
It's 11:50.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm way behind. 11:50.
But either way, it's okay. I think a lunch break is appropriate, and I think the statistical reports are succinct enough that it will still allow for enough time for closed session.
Okay. So 11:50. How long shall we take for a lunch break?
12:30?
Yeah, I guess it's about 40 minutes. So let's break now and come back at 12:30 and continue with agenda item number 13. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. The time is 12:30 and hoping to get roll call, please. Alicia Urban-Amen, I am here. Dale Armstrong.
Here.
Jesus Dominguez,
Present.
Daniel Drummer,
Present.
Katarina Ellaby,
Present.
Jonathan Irvin. Jonathan Irvin is absent. And Tanya McMillian.
Present.
All members are present with the exception of Jonathan Irvin, and the board has a quorum. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being back right at 12:30. I'm glad our technical devices are working appropriately. It looks like we are on agenda item number 13. So agenda item 13 is the Administrative Services Quarterly Update. And I'm not sure who's jumping in right now. Oh, Kenneth.
You got your panel.
First of all, can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Good afternoon, board members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Kenneth Meese, and I'm the budget liaison for the board, and I'll be reporting on budgets. First of all, I'd like to take the time to thank the budget office and our budget analyst, Sarah Hinkle, for providing the board with our expertise and assistance. The board continues to report on COVID-19 related costs to the budget office weekly. The costs have decreased from previous months as we have not spent as much money, or actually any money, this quarter replenishing PPE equipment or supplies. According to the budget office, the board is authorized $6,120,000 for this current fiscal year, which is $577,000 more than last quarter. The board expenditures for quarter 3 have decreased by roughly around $131,000 over last fiscal year, quarter 3 expenditures.
Year-to-date expenditures have increased by nearly $310,000. Year-to-date, the board has expended roughly around $70,000 in staff salaries related to COVID-19 matters, but spent no funds, again, for supplies or PPE equipment. Year-to-date, the board has expended roughly around $159,000 in personnel salaries relating to COVID-19, which includes roughly around $2,100 for PPE equipment and supply costs, which I believe the last time we purchased PPE equipment was in September of 2020. As for revenues go, the board collected $1,596,397 in revenues for Q3 this fiscal year. It's roughly around an $8,000 increase over last fiscal year, Q3. Revenues, which were $1,588,425. However, overall year-to-date revenues have decreased by $5,739 over last fiscal year. To conclude, the board is currently has a healthy fund reserve. However, as previously reported, we do have some concerns regarding the decrease in our fund condition, which is expected in budget year 22-23 and also budget year 24-25. Again, the board's fund reserve is healthy, and we anticipate keeping it that way. Again, I want to thank the board members, staff, and members of the public for your time. Are there any questions from the board members?
Ken, this is Alicia. I thank you for this great report and the wonderful graphs and visuals. Can you remind me again why we anticipate the decrease in funds in the year 22-23 and beyond?
Well, overall, I believe the budget office, they just anticipate just, keeping, I don't know, we try to keep a conservative outlook on things. I know Jason has a little bit more, knowledge on working more with the budget office manager on this, on fiscal. I don't know, Jason, if you want to expound a little bit more on that.
Sure. One of the things for the board members to keep in mind is while we create these projections about fund condition into the next couple fiscal years, we're able to use real calculations in expenditure, but we estimate very conservatively in revenue. So one of the things that we don't calculate into that projection is like an increase in licensing population, which would result in an increase in revenue based on renewals. Because we're not sure that we will see 100% certain that there will be more licensees, even though we're 100% certain, we don't include that into the projection. So based on our revenues currently, using that number projecting forward, and then using real numbers for expenditures, we see our fund conditions start to diminish. Essentially that we're spending more than we're taking in. But keeping in mind that that taking in is the most conservative of estimates that you can possibly do. This is what we collected this year, and we're going to use that number for next year and the year beyond.
Yeah.
Even though we know by looking back at previous years, we do see an increase in revenue. Population size grows. That's the main contributor. Application fees grow because more applications are received. That's a little bit more, a smaller slice of the pie. But we do it as a conservative estimate. Worst case scenario, if you will. So, but it is important for us to keep in mind and have that when we're deliberating on things like sunset and what we might recommend to the legislature. There is no room in our existing authority for a fee increase. We are at caps. So with that conservative estimate in mind, and it might seem, again, opportunistic to have that conservative estimate and paint a picture of dire straits that it's going to go down. One thing is certain, we know our expenditures are going to go up, right? That is always the case from one year to the other, and it never deviates from that. So having said that, when we go into sunset, one of the things that I think that this board will have to keep in mind is, asking the legislator for a further authority and a higher cap, and maybe even estimating a new fee increase at that point.
Other board member comments?
This is Daniel. I had a question about the two pie charts that are at the top of attachment 2 on page 104. Looking at quarterly expenditures for quarter 3 in 2019-20 compared to 2020-2021. And so my take is that the amount of expenditure for enforcement, if I'm getting the color correct, increased by 80,000 from one quarter to in comparing quarters, but down below it seems to indicate that expenditures overall decreased. That's correct, but there's an increase, a significant increase in just the enforcement expenditure.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, do we have any reasoning rationale for that?
I think that would be more, under consumer protections. I know that the AG costs have gone up for this fiscal month or quarter than last fiscal quarter. Also, our Office of Administrative Hearing cost went up too. Most like is the Attorney General costs that went up mostly. I'm not sure if Jason or somebody in consumer protection has they probably have more of an insight of what certain fees or increases were pertaining to that particular.
So for that one, we do have some insight. But one thing that's important to keep in mind is the quarter-to-quarter comparisons are worth their weight in salt, right? So it depends on when billings were. And this particular one, it's kind of easy to kind of reflect on because we had an increase in costs for the Attorney General's office as well as the Office of Administrative Hearings, but we also saw an increase in workload because of freeing up. As the state started to lessen and as the Office of Administrative Hearings and even the Department of Justice acclimated more to COVID, their throughput started to increase. And so while we had kind of a backup or a backlog, a bottleneck, if you will, of work that wasn't being done because there was a teleworking situation, people were out of the office, couldn't have hearings at OAH. As they learned to resolve some of those issues, the work started to flow more, and so those billings started to come in that particular quarter.
Thank you.
Other board member comments on the budget report? Okay.
I guess I'm surprised that we don't have the question about the expenditures related to COVID and being high enough to get into the 6 digits. And I just wanted to provide a little insight to the members about that is essentially a calculation that we've collected where through DCA and through Kenneth and his patience and trying to round us all up would find out, how much time did you spend on COVID-related issues in a particular week? And then attributing whatever costs you incurred, meaning your salary, your hourly wage, the space you occupy, the equipment that you use, and calculating, saying that that is the cost that we spent on COVID this week. solely COVID related. And it could be enforcement, it could be informational, it could be outreach, it could be Q&As with program directors or applicants directly over the phone. But all of those costs amongst the staff attributed to that six-figure number. So, and as Kenneth kind of pointed out, the last time we actually bought any kind of PPE equipment was September of 2020. And I just attribute that to admin's kind of good planning and planning for the future. We bought enough equipment, we bought enough sanitizer, we bought enough masks to provide for staff that we still have a sufficient supply. And I don't really think that we'll be buying much more now that the state is starting to open up.
And does that number include the staff person who is allocated over to contact tracing?
I think that's a separate category, and he has that on there as well.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. I'll allow some silence just in case another board member has a comment or question.
Madam President, this is Jesus. Just a quick comment. So to use an old familiar term, trigger, you know, when I hear things like ill or terminal, that triggers anxiety. I think I heard Mr. Meese say healthy, which is a good thing. So I'm pretty comforted that we'll be in reasonable shape moving forward. And to Jason's point, I think sunset's probably going to be an opportunity for us to explore making a case for moving the cap up.
So here's an opportunity where I can express a little bit of maybe a different opinion than that of Mr. Meese. Our fund condition is healthy. We're moving into 7 months, and then if our projections are true, we'll be down to 5. And in the budget world, and DCA's budget analysts, which would, I think, influence Kenneth quite a bit, that would be considered healthy. But I think I've expressed to the board in the past that I would like to see a double-digit fund condition to plan for a rainy day. You never know what could happen. We could have started administering our own national exam. We could have a lawsuit with another board or association. Any of those things could cost us quite a bit of money. So healthy, from my mind, will be reserved at 10 months or higher for future reference. On the other side of things, terminal, some of the members of this board have experienced terminal, right? We were down to a 3-week fund condition, in which we had to be reimbursed by a general fund loan of somewhere in the areas of $1.8 million or something like that. I don't have those anxieties anymore. So, but moving up into this space and the increased cost with, you know, additional square footage and a higher per square foot rate. On top of that, the moving cost during a pandemic and all of those kind of things, the fact that we were able to do it frugally and, you know, come so far within, well under budget and without actually impacting the fund condition too much, it's like a team effort with PTDC staff and DCA alike.
Absolutely.
But Kenneth now knows healthy is 10 months and higher.
Which is where we are.
Yep.
Okay.
Jason,
Any other
this is Kat. Remind me, I feel like I'm having deja vu. Wasn't it the last sunset that we discussed with the legislators that we needed to raise our statutory caps for fees? I feel like I'm reliving this moment.
No, you are experiencing Buja Day, right? Those things that have not happened yet. So in the last sunset, we did ask the legislature to consider not a fee increase, but just an increase in the authority while the hood was open on the car. And they decided at the time that that was necessary, that we would probably survive until the next possible sunset period. And if we didn't, we can always kind of go and lobby the Capitol for emergency legislation and have whatever ailed us fixed. So no, we did try to address this issue in the last sunset. And I think the important part of that is a reminder of how long ago we actually had a fee increase. Because I know for some stakeholders, it seems like it was yesterday, but it was 7 years ago. So, you know, when you add it up, it took us a while to get it done. And then we addressed it in sunset to get our authority increased, not anticipating a fee increase, but a just in case moment. And then here we are at the next sunset and still in pretty good shape, but still I'd like the authority to at least be increased. So if we needed to, we could pursue a fee increase in regulation.
I agree, it doesn't feel like 7 years. Feels like yesterday. Other board comments? Ken, thank you so much. And if you don't mind just hanging around, and we'll call for public comment after item 13B. So with that, 13B, the outreach report.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is April Beauchamp. I'm the Communication and Education Analyst within the Administrative Services Unit, and I will be presenting the outreach report. So for the website in Q3, the PTBC had 38,853 web hits through its homepage that resulted in a 3% decrease. The decrease in traffic on the website is attributed to outreach efforts to go paperless and direct applicants and licensees directly to Breeze. For Facebook in Q3, 15,439 people accessed the PTBC Facebook page, which resulted in a 30% decrease in traffic. Again, the reasons for the traffic decreasing is due to the current pandemic. However, comparing this quarter to last quarter, our traffic has increased by about 25%. So looking at the numbers, I'm hopeful that we will start to see the traffic increasing again and see it on the other side. Along with social media and the website, we also utilize listserv, which we use to reach our licensing population. In total, we've sent out about 9 listserv emails regarding waivers, updates, any reminders, and things like that. But the most exciting part of the outreach report is the school presentation. So this quarter, Q3, the PTBC provided virtual outreach presentations to 7 programs. And we've also provided an outreach presentation to a new up-and-coming program, Pima Medical Institute, which will soon become CAPTE accredited and has students already graduating next month. So that was really exciting to get to present to those students as well. Also with that, we have virtually met with program directors from Unitech, which is another up-and-coming program working on becoming CAPTE accredited. And we look forward to visiting all of the up-and-coming programs as they are accredited. And we're always more than willing to meet with any program directors while they're in that process as well. So not only are we well on our way to reaching our goal, we are also reaching programs, again, that are coming up. In total, we have provided 23 outreach presentations virtually since the start of the pandemic. Out of the 32 programs, that was our goal to reach by the end of the strategic plan. We have presented laws and regs and or the application process presentations to 26 of them. We also have 2 new ones scheduled for the near future, which will bring our total to 28. And I'm working on scheduling another 2 as well, which will bring us to 30. So I'm more than confident that we will reach our original goal of 32 programs by the end of the strategic plan. Do any members have any questions regarding anything with outreach?
Thank you, April. I think it's very impressive that you have reached the number of programs that you have so far, that you're on target to meet the goal before the end of the strategic plan. And obviously there's a lot of fruit, that bore from those presentations. Good fruit, you know, for the licensees,
Thank you.
but also, yes, you're welcome, and thank you. Also for the public, because the better informed we are as licensees, the more we can pass that on as well to consumers. I still think that we are probably, as licensees, you know, a really good conduit for information from the PPPC. So thanks for your work and staff's work getting out to those programs, even virtually. I think it's really important. One question that I have doesn't necessarily have to do with the numbers necessarily, but I know in the past we've wanted to have a new look to our website, and I'm wondering if we've made any headway on that at all.
Yes, so things with that were kind of halted with the pandemic too, and then also getting all the websites in DCA ADA compliant. So I think once all of that is kind of done and taken care of, we'll be able to get more into it like we wanted to. But just with other things going on and trying to make the website all ADA compliant and stuff, it kind of put a pause on it for a little bit.
We were very close to starting the process of switching to a new web template, but because of ADA compliance litigation, there was a reprioritization, if you will, and it went from modernization to standardization, where all of the publicly facing documents now had to be deemed ADA compliant. And so a lot of the resources for the web team at OIS, at DCA, went from saying, yes, let's get you into a new template to, well, wait a second, we need to get all your documents ADA compliant first. So that's probably the most significant delay now. We were, until that litigation happened, the next client in line. So as soon as ADA, which is a juggernaut, it's a slow moving project, as soon as OIS has freed up some resources with that, which we're helping with because we're trying to have almost an ADA coordinator, if you will, somebody who prepares and preps documents here in-house. We're still working on that concept with DCA. Once we get past that point, I would imagine we'll be the next client in the hopper.
So forgive my ignorance, but why can't we do both and?
I think it's just a matter of bandwidth for OIS at this point, right? So most of the technicians that would be helping us transition to a new website template are on a daily basis making all of the documents ADA accessible that currently exist on all of the DCA clients' websites.
And those are internal documents.
They're internal, but we upload them to that DCA search page. Mm-hmm. So any consumer can come and search any name or license number for any board or bureau within the Department of Consumer Affairs, regardless of whether they're on Breeze or CAS or Salesforce or any of the new clients, see those publicly facing documents that were created that weren't ADA compliant when they were created. And so now we're converting them for that presentation.
And current documents, are those automatically in a new format?
We're transitioning to kind of a best practice how you create ADA compliant documents, both with the Office of the Attorney General and with the Office of Administrative Hearings.
So that it's coming from the source already done.
Yeah, it's not done with the least amount of conversion possible to get it done, right? Because some of those things, it seems, are almost an impossibility of law to come to us completely compliant. It's up to us to convert them, and we're still kind of learning that process too.
Okay. So when that magical number gets hit and most of it is converted, are we still first on the list?
That's why I said I would imagine that we should still be, and I would grouse if we weren't.
Okay. All right. What other board member comments or questions do you have for outreach? Okay. Any other comments from staff?
Just two additions. The one I know right off, the other one I have to think about for a second. But the first addition I would say is the numbers, when we're talking about presentations to schools, quantify the number of schools. The one thing that's kind of missing from that is the schools that we've been back to multiple times, right? That are what we would consider our regular clients. and they're scheduling with every cohort right around the same time, and we're familiar with them. So we're maintaining that as well. I think that's it.
Okay. Moderator, can you please facilitate comments for agenda item 13A and B?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. This is the moderator, and I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you again, Ken and April. We have agenda item 14, application services quarterly update.
Moderator, if you could make Yura Trent a panelist.
Good afternoon.
Oh.
Excellent.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm out of order. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yura Trent. I'm currently the lead analyst with the Applications and License Maintenance Program for the Physical Therapy Board. And I'll be reporting out on all three sections of the application, licensing, and continued competency. So I'm going to start with applications. As our applications continue to maintain almost 100% of applications being submitted online, the data does reflect a decrease in the applications received in the third quarter. This can be attributed to a combination of things between the pandemic and just the we tend to see a decrease in volume of graduates applying for a license at that time. But we do anticipate an increase in applications moving forward due to the new addition of the PTA programs, as Jason talked about in the earlier executive officer report. And I have also, being part of the outreach team, had the opportunity to present the applications process to some of these schools already. And then I wanted to just kind of reiterate welcoming our new team member, Mr. Paul Rowe. He has been awesome addition to our team. He's fit in quite nicely. In fact, I just want to acknowledge all the good work that our team has put together in processing these applications at this time. And I don't know if everybody gets a chance to look at our newsletter, but one of our team members, Ms. Valerie Kearney, has written an article in the newsletter that talks about how we process our applications through the pandemic. And with that, I really have nothing else for applications, and I was going to move forward to the license maintenance part. So with license maintenance, there hasn't been any notable changes in our data, except for the number of duplicate requests being processed. The online duplicate requests for wall certificates has increased quite a bit between the fiscal years, and this could be attributed to our discontinuing the printing of the pocket licenses, which this information is currently available online. And then moving into continued competency, as earlier reported out, the continued competency resources have been redirected to application services. So I currently have no data to report out on continued competency at this time. And with that, I have concluded my reporting out on applications and license maintenance programs. If there's any questions, I thank the board.
Thank you, Yura. Board members, any questions or comments regarding application services, or it looks like continuing competency agenda item number 16 was also touched on.
Madam President, real quick, this is Jesus.
Yes.
Yura, thank you so much. That was very informative. I just had a quick question, and I agree that the number of applications are likely down because of the difficulty that programs had in trying to place their students, for one, out in the clinics. So I'm just curious if you anticipate a big surge here now that the programs play catch up and finish off graduating previous class years, and then now with new school cycles beginning. Just curious.
I would say yes, and we've kind of already seen that starting to happen as as students are finishing up their clinical rotations. We're starting to see the applications kind of pick up.
Great, Yura. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Dominguez brings up a good point, because while we do quarter-to-quarter analysis, sometimes there are anomalies, if you will, that will actually push data from one quarter into the other. And so it's still a kind of a smooth fluctuation, but on paper it looks like a drastic reduction on one quarter, and we would anticipate seeing an increase in the next quarter, but we won't see that until the September meeting. We know that to be true, though, if we look back at last year's numbers in comparison to the year before with the pandemic. And there has even been times when it came to teleworking, when it came to processing or cashiering payments coming in, where we saw a very significant decrease in revenue for quarter, let's say 2, but almost the exact rebound in an increase of revenue in quarter 3. And it just happened to be when things were keyed into the system, and that delay was as a cause of COVID. So we certainly anticipate and expect that to happen because of the schools and their delays as well.
I'm curious also, Yura, can you give us an update on how the submission of electronic P1Es is going for staff?
It's certainly easier to have them sent to our email box, and we're able to compartmentalize them better and get them processed a little easier and come up with a more, I guess, user-friendly way of processing these applications to push the flow better. So it's been, on our end, it's been very helpful, and I hope it's helpful on the end of the schools, where they can just electronically submit things instead of having to just mail out a bunch of paperwork and save some trees that way. So it seems like it's a good process for both sides.
Yeah.
And just to clarify for maybe the lay person listening from home, the P1E is the Certificate of Completion for Education, one of the requirements for licensure, where the school is essentially vouching they've completed the PT program, date and time, and signed by the registrar. We would normally receive that in a paper copy, endorsed with a school seal and those kind of things, and we've moved, again, kind of in that best practice mode, to an online delivery where the school can send it to us through a secure email. And then staff can, pair them or match them to the applications that they have on file. It's, I think, the first step. It's kind of a makeshift way to go about doing it, but at some point in the near future, not near future, maybe distant future, we would like to see maybe a more fixated approach. Maybe a school goes to a website and uploads, or maybe there's a direct interface from the school to CAPTI and from CAPTI to the PTBC. So we're constantly kind of exploring that expansion of technology to solve some of these problems.
Any other board member comment or question? On behalf of the board members, I want to also welcome Paul Rowe to the team and maybe ask Jason if you can talk just a little bit about the importance of what he will be doing.
Sure. And really thank you for the opportunity. I think to expand on an idea that some might not understand the importance. A good majority of the applications that we receive for licensure are from out-of-state applicants. And currently, or at least it's been custom and culture of the past, those out-of-state applicants with a kind of a different application process would be standing in the same line as a CAPTI accredited graduate. And so if you had a huge, say, July, where you have a lot of CAPTI accredited graduates, if you happen to be an endorsement applicant coming to California in July, you get caught up in this really kind of backlog and overhaul of volume. What we've done is created an endorsement desk, an endorsement/military desk. So essentially those endorsement applicants and those military applicants stand in a different line than the CAPTI graduates. And one of the reasons for that is there is an expectation of endorsement applicants to be able to get into the profession quicker moving here. Military, the same way. We've seen the pressure that you've seen with legislative bills and all the solutions that they proposed to address that issue. We've come up with some kind of ideas on our own, and one of them is designating a resource, an actual staff person to cater to that workload, but also have expertise in that field and become familiar with how to do endorsement applicants from certain states, because those vary from one state to another. And then also specializing and interpreting military service and how that translates in the application process. Paul is uniquely suited to that case because of his military service in the Navy, but also his involvement with the Registered Nursing Bureau and working in their application services unit, and his familiarity with Breeze as a result from that. So I know application staff are excited and happy to have him handling that because it frees up more workload for them to process CAPTI accredited graduates too. So we think that it's going to be a win-win situation. I think that it's going to provide a better resource both for the endorsement and the military, but also freeing up a little bit of bandwidth for the CAPTI accredited graduate as well.
Fantastic. I think that's what I was hoping to hear is that it will be a benefit for the endorsement applicant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you for that, Jason. Any follow-up comments or questions from board members?
This is Tanya. I have a comment. I just think that is so amazing and wonderful how you guys are becoming more efficient and addressing little inconsistencies or things that just take up so much time, and you're knocking it out. I'm like so impressed. It's amazing.
Thank you.
And I miss my after lunch chocolates. Okay.
I'll have one for you.
You didn't get yours?
What's that, Dr. Dummer?
I got mine. Tanya didn't get yours?
You did?
Yeah.
No. Well,
It might be
actually, the
yours.
chocolates are probably the same place as my coffee cake. Okay.
Duly noted.
Okay, so we hit application services, we hit continuing competency, and I think, did we give public a chance? Not yet. Okay, so moderator, can you please facilitate comment on agenda items 14 and 16, which is application services and continuing competency?
All right. Thank you very much. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. This is the moderator, and I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Trent, will you be also presenting on agenda item 15, licensing services?
She did.
That was included in there.
There just wasn't, there's not a variation to report about.
Okay.
As usual.
Okay, so I apologize that I did not include public comment for licensing services as well. I think maybe we should.
You can certainly open it back up for that, but also for continuing competency as well.
Yeah, okay, so forgive me, moderator, if we can also reopen for public comment, and this can be for agenda item 14, 15, and 16, application services, licensing services, and continuing competency.
Of course. So the Q&A panel is now available. If any member of the public would like to comment on those agenda items, please type "I would like to make a comment" and submit it to all panelists using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We will give you a moment. This is the moderator, and I see no requests for public comment. Madam President, would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please, thank you.
You're welcome.
Moving right along to agenda item number 17, consumer protection services.
Good afternoon, board members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My name is Beatrice Reynoso. I'm an analyst within the Consumer Protection Services program, and I'll be providing you with our program's most recent updates. Recently, we had a change in the process and how we transmitted cases to the Attorney General's office in our efforts to go green. We now have a process with the Division of Investigation and our continued efforts of going green. When submitting a case to DFI in the past, the analyst would have to prepare packets of the case's supporting documents, which can be fairly large at times, and mail those to the DFI's intake unit. DFI would then have to wait for a packet to arrive before they could send the case to the assigned field office supervising investigator to then assign the case to an investigator. However, with the new process, there is now a shared folder in our network drive that can be accessed by both DFI staff and board staff. Once we have submitted our request for service via DFI's website, board staff will now save the attachments into that shared drive for DFI to access. When DFI staff receives the board's online request for service, DFI will access the shared drive and send the request along with the attachments to the assigned field office supervising investigator to be assigned to an investigator. Unfortunately, this process is so new that we have not had the chance to try it out. However, we believe it to be very beneficial and will help us cut our time in having to prepare packets to be mailed to DFI and will help with the delaying of DFI assigning the cases to an investigator. And with that update, is there any questions?
Thank you for explaining the process. That's actually very helpful. Any board member questions or comments?
This is Daniel. I think it's a great use of the technology that we have available now. It's a similar system to what I've used when I've done a refinance on my home mortgage, where I upload to a secured server and don't have to mail my copies of all of my documents and don't have to worry about emailing them, which is not secure. So I think it should be a great time saver and paper saver.
Mm-hmm.
I know that for the consumer protection report, these numbers, any of these numbers can change, and those arrows can be up and down. And a lot of times we don't have control over that, but it's that PM1, for some reason, you know, I'm wondering, why is it down 50%? And does that have to do with the pandemic at all, or, you know, less face-to-face visits? Well, I don't know. If we can even take a stab at that, but I was just curious looking at it being down 50%.
Is that the complaints received? I'm trying to pull up the document right now.
Yes, yeah, it's the year-to-year change.
So as of the end of Q3, we have a year-to-date of 192 complaints compared to 407. What I'm not certain of is if that 407 is Q1 through 3 of last fiscal year. Was it? Okay. So it would be a 50% reduction. I think COVID does certainly have a lot to do with it. We do know anecdotally that there has been a less of an opportunity for consumers to receive physical therapy services, and so as that trickles down, we'll see less complaints. And then the same goes with some of the things like the arrest reports we receive. We know that the local counties and local city jurisdictions have seen a decrease in the number of, you know, hearings and court hearings that they have provided at times. But also, it seems like during the pandemic, they have dismissed a lot more cases in the furtherance of justice. And so some of the things that we might have seen an arrest for, we aren't necessarily going to see a conviction for, or normally we might have before. And they're just trying to keep the system free and clear for those more egregious charges that come through the criminal system. And I think really that is probably the only explanation that could, you know, describe that 50% decrease.
Thank you. Other board member comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Moderator, will you please facilitate public comment for agenda item 17?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. This is the moderator, and Madam President, I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have agenda item 18, probation monitoring services.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me? Oh, there I am. Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi,
My name's Monty Martin. I'm the probation monitor for the board, for those that you don't know. And I understand we had some maybe formatting issues with my numbers that I sent in, so I'll go ahead and read some of those to you because I understand the first two columns may have got cut off there. So for the third quarter of the fiscal year, probationers entered into probation. And just to give you a little context, in the first quarter there was 2, and in the second quarter there was 1. So 7's quite a big jump. I would imagine that's because everything started opening up again and cases started getting processed like they normally would. We had 1 person complete probation in the quarter. 1 person was non-compliant. We had no surrenders. Currently at 14 people tolling out of state. And you may notice that the number of total probationers dropped significantly down to 60 from 82. That's due to some cleanup that we were doing and Breezed. I noticed that the numbers for total probationers wasn't being accurately captured by Breeze, so some cleanup was done, and now it's more accurately reflecting those numbers. As far as Maximus, or our drug and alcohol rehabilitation program goes, we had one person enter into that program in the quarter. Nobody completed it. We had one person deemed to be clinically inappropriate. We had one person who was removed from the program for public risk. And right now, we currently have 10 participants in that program. Did anybody have any questions about any of the numbers? I also wanted just to say that we are continuing on with doing interviews via teleconference on through Teams. I've increased that a lot over the last quarter, so pretty much all of the interviews are being done that way now. There's just a couple people who had some connection issues or just couldn't figure out how to get the video and stuff going, but for the most part, everybody is now participating through Teams for those interviews, and it seems to be going pretty well. I noticed that the conversations are more lively and participants are more engaged when I'm talking to them and I can see them, whereas on the phone sometimes it's like they're answering my questions, but they want to just get off and get back to work as soon as possible. So I think it's working out pretty well doing the interviews that way while we aren't traveling. Any questions?
Come on, board members, you always have a question for Monty. Thank you, Monty. I think I'll just look forward to your report again at our next meeting, because maybe by then you'll be anticipating some travel again, and I'll be interested to hear how you kind of prioritize, you know, those that you go see and how many you can see, and then those that you continue to have good rapport with over Teams. I think it's a neat concept, and I'm glad that it's working better than a phone call.
Yeah, when things start getting opened up for travel again, we'll definitely know how that goes and how we're picking the people to actually see in person and which ones we can do Teams with.
Fantastic. Well, if there are no other board member comments, pause just for a few more seconds in case you want to jump in. I'll ask the moderator to please facilitate public comment.
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions. This is the moderator, and I see no requests for public comment. Shall I close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks again, Monty.
No problem. Thank you.
Agenda item 19 is public comment on items not on the agenda. So I would like to ask the moderator to please facilitate any comment from the public on items not on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam President. I will open up the Q&A panel. And if any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type, "I would like to make a comment," using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference, and we'll give you a moment. This is the moderator. I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
agenda item number 20. Our agenda items for future meetings, September 15th to 16th. Now it's going to be the 16th and 17th, 2021. Could be in person, could be WebEx, we're not sure, but what ideas do members have for agenda items?
Madam President, this is Jesus, if I may, just to let the board know of the types of questions I've gotten over the last year, specific, I guess, associated with the pandemic. So one of them is clinicians reaching out to me and just kind of wanting to know how they can protect themselves from liability, specifically when they're treating patients with telemedicine. So in case nothing's happened, thankfully, to report, but they're just trying to figure out how to navigate this. So for example, an adverse reaction or outcome to intervention, how does not being physically present with the patient affect their sort of their liability? And the other one, again, kind of it is related to COVID and telemedicine. Clinicians are asking me how supervising PT students when PT students might be in one location, the clinician in another, and the patient in a third location within the state. How does that play out? So I just thought I'd toss it out there, and really just more for some advice for me in answering or addressing those types of questions.
Thank you very much. Any others? I'll throw one out there. I'm just wondering if we might want to consider entertaining looking at ENMG sunset coming up and just having a conversation possibly about where we might go with that, whether it's now or later, just to maybe have a conversation about it.
Okay.
And other ideas from the board members? And hearing none, moderator, will you please facilitate comment from the public? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I have opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, please type "I would like to make a comment" using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and submit it to all panelists. We are displaying instructions for your reference. This is the moderator. I see no request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay. It looks like we are now having closed session only left on the agenda. So we will recess and come back at 1:45 into closed session, and there will be no more open session after that. We'll adjourn. So thank you everyone for attending.